Hello and welcome to the second episode of the 28KO podcast. I am your host, OG Albino, joined by my co-host, King L5. Hello.
That's me. Let's go.
There you go. So, for those of you guys who missed episode 1, go watch it. It's pretty poggers, as I've been told by many. This is basically just going to be a draft-centered podcast. We're going around what's going on in the Showdown community, what's going on in the Wi-Fi community, and a bunch of little fun segments. We also have a guest today in Rissoux, the owner of, or I don't know if he's the owner now, or former owner of WPF, and one of the main guys for Smogon Draft, to kind of give you guys a heads up into how to get into that scene, or a little bit better of an explanation, and kind of the history behind it. So, that'll be a lot of fun if you guys do enjoy today's episode. Be sure to like the video as well as subscribe to the channel. Mine and L5's, he'll be in the title. You can always just go over and give a nice click on that. And yeah, with that being said, it's time to go. What are we going to talk about first today?
So we got the news, right? What's new this week? You know, in the 2 weeks since the last episode, the Draft Farm League has begun, which is the Smogon equivalent to BOB, if you know about that. It's like like the second tier team tournament. Mm-hmm. So we have the DCL Draft Champions League. That's like the tier 1, you know, best of the best.
The big leagues.
Yeah, that's the team tournament. And for Smogon, if you didn't get drafted there, you're now eligible for the second division, which is DFL. And so that they just finished all their drafting. Their week 1 is live right now. We could probably just go over the rosters real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Some names to look out for. Obviously, the captains here, they're not going to be playing, but I know I've personally teamed with Scribble, Nick, Spees, High Crocs, Cookie, Charmd. A lot of these people I've actually worked with before, and they're all great. Some names to note: A12. He's a very creative builder, known for his Diggersby, which is, I don't think, in the decks right now, but...
It's not. That's why he's in DFL, not DCL. If Diggersby was in the decks, you'd all be fucked up there. It would not be good. It would not be good for you. That's all I'm saying. Yeah. It's also cool. He's a Wi-Fi guy. He's doing really well in the BBR tournament right now as well. I think he's in top 4 of that right now with Mount-A, Kaz, and Who. So he's been playing well there too. He's been playing well in general, so it's cool to see.
There's also folks like Drizzle. I might be mixing this up, but I believe he was on the West Coast Draft League World Cup roster, right?
That's the wrong guy. I was on the team.
You were on the team.
I know. I don't remember, dude. You want me to be honest? I don't remember.
I might be mixing that up. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's also Nix, who's one of the leaders of Smogon Draft as well, getting drafted here. Ashi. I still don't know exactly how to pronounce that. But
they're a very nice guy, though. Very, very nice
I know
guy.
He's been around. Hail Draws. I know. Isn't he like top 4 in the seasonal right now?
I keep seeing replay, so I'm pretty sure.
Either top 8 or top 4. He's doing great there.
Nunes.
Yeah, PB and J, but the order switched around. That's awesome. See, on Beast Recognized Beast, we got Peanut, Judder, and Belly.
That's way too hard to say, man.
That's his name. Sir Kill, you've seen around Bronson, usually a mainstay in the main tour, so he'll definitely be smurfing down there, unless he's washed, of course.
Who'd say that's what we're here
around? It's Nim, was also in DPL, I'm pretty sure, this past season. Let's see, who else of note? There's VM Nunez,
is
who
a big
I've teamed with.
The money guy? Getting drafted on his birthday? Money guy.
Yep.
Getting drafted, that was really cool for him.
Virgie's always a fun one to watch. His games are always very stupid, and he always finds a way to win. Like, he mind controls his opponent into throwing the game harder than he does. It's great. Fierce Flamethrower, the best name ever.
That is pretty hard. That is pretty fucking hard.
Fierce Flamethrower?
Yeah, dude, that's pretty fire. I can't lie. My goat, Mr. T-Row Price. There you go. I wonder if he's playing VG. I know he's been on a big VGC arc lately, so I don't know if he's playing VGC.
He has. I would assume he's playing VGC here.
DJS is another Wi-Fi guy too.
Yeah, I think Sceptile has done pretty well in some of the individual tournaments. Endless Gadgets has been around for a long time.
Yeah.
He hosts a Gen 4 tournament every once in a while, so he's pretty active in the scene. There's Tezzy, who is also on the World Cup winning roster. Who else do I know here? Dact, who's, I think, in DPL, right?
I think so, yeah. And maybe mids? I feel like I remember seeing... Or he might have just been in general. I don't know. I do remember seeing the name, though. He guaranteed drafted at some point.
Yeah. And then there's like EGA Hydreigons is the name I've seen around forever. But I've never really seen him.
I don't. Is that their Discord name or is that just the Showdown name? That's where the because there used to be like a name. Yeah, there used to be a. I don't know who that is because there used to be a bunch of people with like EGA X. You know, like so I don't remember who that is, but I know I've seen the name. Yeah.
Yeah. On this Firebird Suite team, there's not a whole lot of names I recognize outside
Ultra
of that
Player's
one.
Ultra
Accelerator and Ultra Player, yeah. And then I've seen 20 Tuan talk. I've never seen him play though, so one of the more active players in the Discord. But yeah, just going through all these rosters, there's some names to look out for, and there's a bunch of new names which I've never seen before. But definitely we'll be watching some of those games, you know.
Maybe it's a cool opportunity for them to break onto the scene either in the next DCL or the next the next DPL potentially. There's always a few diamonds in the rough, so that'll be cool. Definitely a lot of fun. And you said some fun fact about it. We won't look at the team super in depth, but there was like 6-man draft pools or something like that. So the teams are pretty fucking bananas.
There's only 6 rosters, right? So every draft is a pool of 6, so every team is broken. Like. We don't need to go over it in depth. But
I just threw it up on the screen for people to have a good time and see some chaos.
I've seen like Greninja, Meowscarada, Garchomp right there. 3 excellent Pokemon you'd never see paired
together usually, yeah. Oh, Jesus.
Iron Valiant, Garchomp, Terrapagos, Terrazarude. How do you lose with that team? That's gotta be difficult.
The round 4's Rude is also really fucking funny too. Like I know, especially because like it's not even like people are like just finding out about this. You know, like that was something we talked about last episode. Is like really breaking on like people realizing. So shouts to 6-man draft pools, and I'm sure the old gen teams are very very similar.
Broken.
Yeah, very very broken as well. So it's pretty funny to see. So yeah, we have that, and then we also had DCL mids end recently. It's pretty cool. So. Obviously, I actually didn't know this last episode, and probably was indicative of like the way I was talking about mids. I thought it was the same as DPL, where like players were gonna get dropped and picked up, but it was only roster changes. And there was some pretty crazy trends that you saw. Yeah.
Well, it's not so much like massive trends, but like a few things that I did notice. So there wasn't a lot of Kingambits drafted. I believe it was only 1, but it is now dropped. So the Fall of Kingambit has officially concluded.
Yeah.
Mon is washed. And we'll talk a bit more about that later, but one thing that's on the rise is Gouging Fire. Now, I will say, I was a believer from the start, but a lot of people were doubting, and they put him in 15 points, which is insane. And then at mids, people are realizing, wait,
this guy might be broken.
It's Zardex with the item slot, right? So
this guy might be him.
People started drafting him, and especially having some strong performances pre-mids. Like the first 3 weeks, Gouging Fire was awesome, and we're probably going to see that trend continue because it's ended up on some really good teams. Judging that it's lower point value, the quality of the teammates goes up, right? What else is there? There was some Palafins picked up. There was a Ogerpon Wellspring dropped for a Zarude. That was cool because I'm a Zarude fan. And Ogerpon's a great Pokemon. It's so hard to prep for, but Zarude is he's that guy. What can I say?
Guy. Broken guy. Every time I see that guy, especially since we've recorded the podcast, the first episode, every time I see that guy, he's winning a game or walling everything. While still doing 50% everything with knockoff. It's fucking nuts. That guy's a tool. Not a nice guy. And then from the Wi-Fi side, I guess the only news we have, if you guys haven't seen, it went live on Sunday. It should be the most recent video before this one. I'll link in the description or go check it out. We had the BBL announced. which is a Wi-Fi league that is Ubers. So again, a little bit more wacky than your super competitive scene and like the tournament scene, but we can see some cool guys, some Mewtwo's, some Magirnas, all that cool shit, and we have a really, really fun roster headlining some really awesome Wi-Fi creators. So go check that out. I'll let you go check out the fun hype video that what do you call it? We had made. And yeah, you go check out some BBL Drizzy, and it'll be a good time. So definitely really exciting for that. Now, from what we'll do from here is we are going to cut really quick. We're going to go ahead and meet with our guest Rissoux, like we said, big head guy in the Smogon scene as well as in WPF, and we'll kind of talk to him about some of the resources they have over there and some of the things you can get into in those scenes. Alrighty, here we are with the man of the hour himself, Rissoux. If you want to introduce yourself, who are you, what you do, all that good stuff.
Yeah, man. So for the Draft League community, I've kind of got two main roles here. So WPF, or World Pokemon Federation, we'll talk about here in a little while, is the largest Draft League server in the community, sitting at 2,300 members or so. We've got something crazy like 10 or 11 different divisions of things that we run at any given time. We've got the school off season going right now. It's a gym challenge, whatever thing. But we serve as one of the main sort of focal points by which people enter into the community, look at the like the plug chats and things where people always are posting advertisements for the different events they have or the servers they run or whatever, that really kind of fits anybody's fancy so far as what they're looking for in the community. But that's one hat. The other hat that I have here is that I'm a senior staff member on the Smogon site and one of the community leaders with Autumn for the Draft League subforum. So what that means is that we have our own kind of dedicated place on Smogon that we talk about Draft League stuff. We have tiers on Showdown itself. We have our own circuit, which I know we'll talk about here in a minute as well, and are again serving as that sort of focal point by which people see your favorite Wi-Fi streamers like Owen on YouTube, and they say, "Hey, how do I get involved? How do I go and do that?" So they find those different links and get into the community that way and start doing their Draft League thing.
Yeah, no, 100%. Smogon and Draft, by the way, I remember when that happened, it's almost like 2 years ago now. I remember that being, at least for me, is that obviously I'm not a part of the behind the scenes things, a big surprise, but obviously something that's really, really cool to see. Kind of Draft League has always been kind of in its own little pocket and corner in the competitive singles community, and it was cool to see it kind of get that, I don't know if recognition is the right word, but I thought that was really cool. But yeah, definitely pretty awesome. What is Smogon Draft more in depth? Like, what's your guys' vision long term?
So the long-term vision for Draft League itself. So if you are not caught up with the sort of success we've had on the site so far, like you said a second ago, we've really only been on the site for 2 years, which is baby length compared to a lot of these other formats. OU, PU, whatever, have been on the site for decades at this point. And very established formats, right? So we're very new in the grand scheme of things. However, the amount of people who have been able to show up and play in these tournaments is right up there with more of the more popular formats, right? So one of the things we want to do is to kind of keep that interest thriving and give people an opportunity for kind of low threat, low engagement places to get in and maybe get their hands a little dirty and play some of the Draft League stuff without signing up for a full length 9-week season plus the playoffs and the whatever that you get in a standard league play, right? So because of the versatility and how many different Pokemon kind of synergize with each other or don't, there's a lot of trial and error that I feel like a lot of people, especially across the 10 or 11 different formats we run, don't get to try that often because again of that huge time commitment where I sign up for this league, maybe I get in, maybe I don't, and then I have to rock with this one team for 3 months. That's crazy, right? Going through and having the opportunity to try out all the stuff you want to try, you'll be there for years trying to this stuff, right? So we keep the schedule as jam-packed as we can with a whole bunch of different stuff in order to keep the community engaged and kind of, and we kind of go from there. So we don't think that we are the center of the universe so far as the Draft League scene is considered. I know that there are some people in the community that like to have the idea that we're the boogeyman, right? We're out to make the scene out to be this one giant corporate conglomerate, right?
Dude, corporate Draft League is so funny.
I'm serious. No, I've seen screenshots of some goofy people talking craziness. I'm not out to get, put your league out of business or anything, right? I'm not trying to make everything our way. However, it is important for the longevity of the community to have a sort of standardized way that things are done so that everybody can kind of build off of that, right? If you understand vaguely what to expect from the Smogon draft, then you should at least have an idea of what comes when you go and you try out these other tournaments and these other leagues.
And it gives you a template if you want to start your own thing too, right? Like it gives you kind of a base. Yeah, no, that's definitely fair.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I find the sample draft boards to be especially interesting because, how many times have you seen this random league with the worst tiers you've ever seen, and then the next one you see is even worse? Like, it's just a new level of
especially in Scarlet and Violet, by the way. Like, I feel like it's always been a thing. It's always been a thing where, like, different people have different opinions, which is fine. But in Scarlet and Violet, we talked about it a little bit last time, especially with, like, Terra and how people approach that and things like that. Like, it's definitely really interesting to see, how varied it gets.
Having a baseline good draft board is pretty important, honestly, at least in my opinion. Like, some might say it doesn't really matter as long as you're having fun, right? But I think keeping it competitive is also nice.
Yeah, and again, it always depends. Like, if you're in a league with just 80 or like I have people in my server. They're like, I started Draft League by like watching YouTubers, and me and my buddies in college in like a 4-person league, and which is super dope. But again, as you start to venture into, I really like doing this. I'm spending a lot of time. I'm spending all my free time doing this. So you want to get better. You kind of have to have that consistent baseline to at least work your way up from.
I will say it is funny though, talking about the idea that like, oh yeah, you're just gonna do this thing to have fun. It's a good time, whatever. You guys have fun with your. Well, no. I was gonna say you guys have fun with like your top mon non-Terra Tornadus, right? I'll rock up with my Terra Dragapult. I'm gonna have a lot of fun. I can't speak for you guys.
Yeah.
And I say that as an example because one of the ongoing tournaments we have going on right now is a Genius Cup, right? Okay. And what that was, we essentially just handed the draft board over to beloved Genius X and said, hey, go crazy. Whatever you want, legalize it, don't legalize it. And there's some madness on that board, like top tier Ponyta, Palkia Origin. Hot takes.
And it's not like it's a random Andy, it's a guy who's seen a lot of success in the format, so
I'm pretty sure he won the award for like best draft player in 2023, right?
No, that was ASDF, I think. Chi later. I'm pretty sure.
Well, he won the first big circuit, right?
Yeah.
He definitely won some
stuff. It was the voting thing. Like
maybe he was on the ballot.
I'm pretty sure Genius. We're not gonna check, but like
well, we fact check on the 2KO podcast. No fake draft league news here. We're finding out. I'm just kidding.
The point, he's a very respectable player.
Yes,
right?
regardless, yeah.
He knows what he's talking about, but he allowed Terra Dragapult, which is like.
Well, there's some worse things. I almost signed up for that tournament despite having like no time, just because it looks so fun. Like, I mean. Fun in the sense of like the controlled chaos, like a bunch of random shit. Wasn't there like a 19-point Ponyta? Wasn't there like some bonus if you won with X certain mon, like or some crazy
with
shit
the Ponyta,
like that? That's
exactly right. Yeah. and I tell you what, in the 5 or 6 years I've been in the community, seeing a fairly serious event in which somebody's complaining about getting sniped round 1 of a Ponyta is
so multiple
hilarious.
people tried it out. Then like has anybody like? I know the tournament's been going for like a month or so. Did anybody make it on past like the Swiss / bracket or pools phase or with the Ponyta, or do they all kind of linger in the first stage of the tournament?
No, so I don't know specifics in regards to how many might have progressed, but somebody posted a replay, and I watched it a week or 2 ago. So Reshiram was also allowed. The Ponyta came in, it like soaked up a blue flare with flash fire. Hit it back for like 60% with a high horsepower, and like 1v1 to Reshiram. That was essentially how
was it ability
went.
shield? I gotta find the replay. That might need to give it a week next week because isn't it? It's Turbo Blaze too, right? It should just blow up the Ponyta. That's crazy.
Oh yeah, what? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
that's crazy. Definitely really cool though. Again, that was another really fun idea, and again, it shows it's also not just all super serious, super sweaty tournament play. There's a bunch of different options for people to try out different shit and have a good time. So that's definitely cool.
All right, so want to move on and talk about a little bit with like the tour scene, because I'm super familiar with it. Owen is like pretty familiar with it, but a lot of viewers might not be. You know, a lot of Wi-Fi viewers they don't really know what's going on with the Smogon tournaments. So where can we find all this stuff? You know, help! I'm brand new.
Explain to L5 like he's 7. He is
I'm
7.
5.
Oh man.
I would have said 6. I was going to try and be generous for you. It's that backlighting you've got. Yeah, it makes you look a little older.
Yeah.
No, man. So
The youthful glow.
exactly right. You say that. It's actually funny the way your camera's positioned.
Yeah,
It is right behind. You did that on purpose. I knew it. Okay. No, so one of the things that was kind of funny. So when we started the kind of merger of like the Draft League community and the Smogon community and made the sub forum, one of the things that is an enduring headache for all the people who kind of join the server and want to get involved is that a lot of our products that we put out are on the forums. And hand to God, I hate the forums. As much as really anybody else in the community will kind of vouch for, they are not a fantastic venue for public engagement, which is why a lot of the stuff that we do routinely kind of do on the day-to-day is in the actual Discord server itself. However, one of the things that is super important for people who want to get involved in the scene, or at least understand kind of vaguely how the forums work, is that you have each kind of landing page for the sub forum or the forum itself, in which you can look at the different sort of products that get posted in threads, right? It's fantastic for like archiving information and making sure that things are accessible for longer periods of time, because some of that stuff just gets lost in Discord, right? You scroll through 50 pinned messages and you can't find the thing you want, and it's in the other channel, right? So that's a pain. But being able to bookmark the 2 or 3 pages that you really need to kind of know and kind of get familiarized on the forums is really all you need, because that will have links to the Discord where, again, pretty much everything else happens. So everything from the templates that L5 was talking about a few minutes ago, where if you want to start up your own league, we've got ready-made Google Sheet documents ready for you where you just plug and play and then you're off to the races, right? As well as like prep documents, a whole bunch of different resources for there's an advertisement thread in there as well, a whole bunch of different things, right? So finding that stuff on the forums is the venue to get you to the more active places like the Discord so that you can start doing stuff.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, it's run through the forums as kind of a necessary, I don't want to say necessary evil, that sounds intense, but it needs to be done in a sense. But you can, as someone who also really doesn't like the forums, I also can't lie to you, you can really find it. As a guy, I've played in a lot of the individual tournaments. If you guys obviously have seen the videos on the channel already, for those of you who are long-time viewers, it's not too difficult. It seems a little bit overwhelming, but everything's kind of streamlined pretty well in there.
Yeah,
as well as it can be.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, I understand it's a necessity.
But yeah,
that's what it is.
Beyond obviously the Smogon side of things, right? We've kind of talked in depth about the different individual tournaments, and things like that you run there. WPF is kind of the other side, right? Whereas we're talking about the tour scene, WPF is more your standard league experience. And a lot of times when people are getting into draft, at least that I hear from my community, first 2 places I'll plug is Smogon Draft and WPF, because like you said, huge server. Not only are there a ton of leagues in WPF, but even if you aren't maybe able to get into one, or you're in, you join during an off season, there's a ton of people plugging their leagues. Do you want to kind of walk us through WPF, whether it be the history, kind of what your guys' goal is over there, what you guys are doing, and kind of how people can use that resource to potentially start playing draft? Because like you and I both already said, it's kind of, in my opinion, the ideal place to start.
Sure, man. Yeah. So WPF started in fall of 2018, and the reason that the server came around was because I, through the entirety of the spring into summer of 2018, had been trying to find a reliable league to play in and couldn't fucking do it. I could not find a league that would go past week 3 or 4 and would die, no matter what it was, right? Mm-hmm. The classic experience, right? Yeah. So I thought,
going on the GBA website, looking for a league.
It was a nightmare. Yeah, so I had that experience, and I thought, I'm gonna do it myself because I want to play in the leagues. I'm gonna just fucking do it. It can't be that hard. It was diabolically hard. The Google documents that we have today were not as progressed as they were back in the day. I was manually inputting KDs for every match for the entirety of the regular season for multiple divisions. Because, oh, by the way, we started with 3 divisions because I, in all of my enduring wisdom, wanted to play in 3. So I thought, I'm gonna just run all 3. It's fine. And I wanted to shoot myself, but it was fine.
Crazy.
The learning curve from 2018 through when COVID started in like 2020 was fairly exponential across the community, where seemingly overnight, like prep documents started getting made, and all these different leagues started doing multiple divisions. We talk about the old stuff back in the day, the LD, the Hive, the OLT, whatever, but they all started having these multiple divisions that started kind of being a cornerstone of what the community was doing, which was kind of filtering by talent. So you would have the skill-based divisions where you had your heavy hitters who would be in like your whatever it is you called your top division, right? So Oblivion or Psycho Boost or whatever, right? And then you would kind of filter on down based off the standard format. So in WPF, we have that for the standard format. The entire league is kind of themed off of Gen 3 because I'm a boomer and I love Gen 3. Started with Gen 2 back in the day, but it was not as easy to find a theme that worked for 11 freaking divisions in Gen 2, right? I don't know what we would have done, but we do 4 divisions of regular, kind of standard, whatever modern gen it is. So right now, Gen 9, we have 2 divisions for VGC, whatever the current VGC thing is. I think it's Regulation H right now, as well as a couple of what we call Regi formats, which is to say they change every season, right? So, excuse me, we put out a community poll that says, hey, what do you guys want to play in? What's the interest? What's the vibe right now? And hit low tier is fantastic. It comes back every season, but we've ran all kinds of madness from almost any ability. We did Alphabet League, which was a disaster like 3 seasons ago. We dabble in a whole bunch of stuff, right? Because that's ultimately what we think the community is kind of wanting. So yeah, we'll put it on. Sure, why not? And we'll rock with it that way. So there's always kind of something going on in the server to kind of facilitate, again, people being able to find the conduit messages when they say, nothing's really happening in WPF right now that I'm interested in. However, L5 just posted this awesome plug in the advertisement chat. I'm gonna go check out what he's got going on, and that's a fantastic way to. Pokemon Draft.
What is this sigh? Exclamation point? This must be hot. I gotta check this out.
Gotta check it out.
Your the DPL plug chat cracks me up every time I see it or go to post it. It's just shit post.
No, I think it's awesome that somewhere like WPS still exists. Because again, I don't know if I'm a draft boomer, right? I started playing in like late 2017, and it was the same experience, right? Like I saw like WBE season 1 come out. I was like, this shit's fire. Like, I want to try this out. And it was impossible to find a league. And honestly, it took me probably like a year and a half of playing to even find the greater community. I found like one small league on the GBA website, and kind of played in a couple small, branch leagues with the same people. And you find this like bigger part of the community, and coming up for me it was APA. Like I played in all the APA leagues, and Panther used to run them and things like that. And like when you said the gym challenge, it really brought me back. It's very nostalgic. I love hearing about cool little events and things like that, because obviously there is like the more sweaty competitive side of it, the tournament scene and all the stuff, which doesn't have to necessarily be sweaty, but there's a different vibe around it. But your good old at home 8-week league with playoffs and a champion, and they get a special role in the server. It's always so cool to see that side of draft still continue to thrive in different parts. So I always recommend a WPF to anybody and everybody kind of getting into draft. And with everything we're kind of linking or talking about right now, whether it be Smog stuff or WPF stuff, anything that Rissoux gives me, it will be in the description below. Obviously, I haven't really mentioned that, so feel free to join any and everything and ask lots of questions. There's plenty of staff in both places. But we did want to talk about a really cool tournament that you guys have kind of planned for Smogon. Speaking of kind of mixing that, competitiveness and maybe a different format, and it's kind of like a draft battle factory for tournament. Do you want to talk to us about that? the process on trying to get that going? Because I heard there's also been some delays in that, and I'm sure it's been a fun process trying to get that going.
It's been a certified dumpster fire, and you know what? It's not any single person's fault. We made a joke earlier, so I was in a phone call with some of the forum mods earlier, and we were going through the 2025 kind of calendar year and what that's going to look like. And I had made the comment because I saw on the screenshot that they had annotated the spot for, it's called Draft Factory, next fall. I had made the comment that if Draft Factory is not up and running by next fall, that I'm quitting show business. I'm out. Uninstalling Discord. Not going to do it anymore. Yeah. And so what we did, right? So back in the day, there were different sort of side servers that would run a lot of the different Draft League formats, and they would do so on a kind of limited basis, right? So we had with sports. I don't know if there was one before sports.
Draft Arena. What was the other one before Draft Arena, or other than Draft Arena? There's like 3 or 4. Battle Area, that's what it was. Dude, I feel old as shit doing this podcast. There's so many of them. Sports is like the main one I think of, but I think it was Battle Area when I first started.
And then there's also just draft.psim.
Oh, there you go,
yeah. It's DL. Right.
Very slightly used. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so DL.psm, whatever, that side server, they had, from what I understand, come up with the concept of players would submit their PokePace for a given matchup, right? So you would have the regular game that occurred either at a tournament or a league or whatever, and you would have your roster of 10 on 10. You can only bring 6, the standard Draft League Gambit. But what would happen is, after that match happened, the 2 PokePace that represented the prep that was made for that matchup would get submitted to the devs of the side server, so that they would implement those teams on like a Ranbat basis almost. And what would wind up happening is those 2 PokePace would get paired so that they always face each other. So essentially what that meant is that you had the Draft League experience from a battling standpoint, but you didn't have to go through all the hassle of the drafting and the prep and the scheduling. The single worst thing about the Draft League thing is fucking scheduling, dude. If I have to... Matter of fact, you bozos who got me on here at 11 o'clock on a Monday...
Oh, no.
Hey, it's the Draft League experience.
Or one such example.
We have to make sure it's authentic. I should have John for 20 minutes and then ran in and be like, dude, are you seriously not going to show up? Wow.
I know, I'm asleep because I'm an old man, but... and the scheduling, right? So you had that Ranbats effect kind of thing that you could just load up with somebody, and you get to replay what could have happened during that game. But obviously, you've got very tailored prep, hopefully, to whatever it is your opponent might have. So that sort of idea was pretty successful, but it was kind of constricted by the amount of effort that it had taken to run at that venue, right? So the partner leagues that made up the sort of cadre for DL.psm.us would submit some of their pace if they had them, but it wasn't really enough to be sustained, and then the whole Smogon thing came along and kind of killed it, so I'm sorry guys, but what we did was for this year's winter seasonal, which is one of our biggest events of the calendar year, we had said, hey, it's I'm going to air quote when I say requirement, because I'm not going to like come to your house if you don't submit it, right? We had asked people to submit their pace in much the same way for each round of the tournament. So at the end state, after the tournament was said and done, we had, I think it was 685 pairs of PokePace that we wanted to submit into our own, what we call Draft Factory. And that was essentially the same format, but on main Showdown, not on a side server. So we went through and we compiled all that information, and we got all the parameters set up just right and whatever. And I have been trying so hard to get this, the code for the tier actually implemented on Showdown. And it's been like 4 or 5 months now that this thing has been done. And I just can't find somebody to put the product together. I've got bits and pieces. And it's going to happen at some point, because at some point I'm going to whip out my fucking pocketbook and pay for this thing. But I'm really trying to not do that if I can help it. So that's where we're at. So the idea that I had initially, and kind of what spawned the need for it was that I want to be able to do a charity event for the community, and I want to do it via this Draft Factory tier. So whenever the tier does get up and running, at some point we're going to be doing a charity kind of stream and event and whatever for that. We'd already kind of got the blessing from the Showdown admins that we're going to be able to offer a custom avatar for whoever wins the thing, plus monetary prize, this, that, and the other. But again, that's all predicated on getting the tier fixed, which has remained to be seen.
Yeah, I know. Originally, weren't you planning on doing it this past summer? And then.
So for reference, Draft Factory, the tournament, is supposed to start next week.
So I'm expecting to not start next week. Okay.
No. Yeah, it was slated to be next week, but that's not going to happen, unfortunately. So
I'm personally very excited for that one. I think one, I didn't know it was going to be a charity tournament. I think that's really cool. But it's potential for a very fire YouTube video, so I'm super excited about that one for sure. Whether it be me going crazy in the tournament, or me yelling because the build I had was shit in my mind, or something like that when I get 6-0'd, it's gonna make a fire video. So I'm very excited for that one, and it's cool that it's gonna be a charity tournament. So that's definitely really, really exciting.
So a small little note that you actually just brought up that was kind of funny was that one of the things that I did, myself and a few people, is that when we had that huge bank of 700 pairs of Pokepaste, we went through each one individually, and anybody who had wacky... Yeah, so a few things, right? So we had to make sure that nobody had any wacky nicknames, like your mom's a hoe or whatever, right? Because we're very professional on the Smogon side of things. And we also made sure that the prep at least made some semblance of sense, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're running 4 support move Valiant, that pace probably got scrapped, right? But we had enough so that we could whittle down from the total of 800 or something. We still wound up with 675 that are marginally competitive. You load in, you see what you got, and then you should have the tools to win. If you don't yell at me. It's not my fault. Keep good.
Be like, yeah, that's what I'm right about.
I hear you checked all of these personally yourself, right?
I hear when someone searches for a matchup, you give them the shittier team if you don't like them. That's what I heard. There's the same people that posted the Smogon corporate conglomerate. They also showed me that.
No, the VGC goons have infiltrated us too much. It's all actually going to be open team sheet. Good luck.
True. There we go.
It's not.
Yeah, we'll see if it actually ever gets up and running. It's going to, mark my words, but when, I have no idea.
Fingers crossed.
I know on the side server, Battle Factory format, I actually played that quite a bit with a few of my friends. Just when we're bored and we have time to kill.
It's a perfect queue game in Overwatch. It's
perfect. Yeah. So I really enjoyed that. The main problem was the team quality, and there wasn't enough teams. I probably played 40 or 50 games total. So many rematches, where everyone knows all the sets already, and it's I know your Spectre is gonna sweep me because there's nothing this guy prepped that can stop it.
I feel like that's also part of the fun, though. To maybe to a lesser extent, but that is part of the fun. Is either getting the shitty team and yelling about it because your team sucked, or smoking your friend with a terrible team and being haha, how did you not win? That's always a good time.
A while back, they did a thing for that where it was a kind of league almost, where it's 10 drafts, and then it's kind of round robin-ish, where everyone was building for each other but not actually scheduling playing. We're just building teams for fun and then inputting that into their database. So that was a good idea. It also gave me a chance to stream team building, which
I feel like I remember that. That was a minute ago. Yeah.
Your opponent can see it, right? But for that, it didn't matter, so I just streamed it, which was super fun, and I got to go through the thought process of building teams and having a live chat. And that was fun, but then they never implemented it. So
just building for pretend matches.
It was a cool idea.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure.
Goodness.
I built a bunch of this Great Tusk. What else did I have on there? It was some saucy team. Was there a Hawlucha on there? I feel like there was a Hawlucha.
You've been a big Hawlucha guy this gen, so it would not surprise me.
Ever.
Special Ogerpon incoming.
No.
There you go.
Oh, I remember I had Terra Espathra, which was seen as a fraud at the time and still kind of is. but like
Well, it's just like that. There's that week where everybody was like,
fun.
"This is broken." No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's terrible. Now it's just a little terrible.
But yeah, just like stuff like that. It's pretty cool, and you know, with you behind it, I'm sure it'll be more successful long term. Which is cool.
We'll see. I mean, if my current track record is any indicator, I'm not sure I deserve that compliment. So we'll see.
Well, with your track record, you have WPF and Smogon Draft, right? Both are very large, very successful Discord servers with a lot of events. So
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get myself a
go
black
both
eye.
ways.
Don't worry about me.
They're working.
Well, hey, I got a question for you guys. So, as two fairly, I would say, prominent individuals in your respective kind of corners of the community, Owen with your Wi-Fi chops and L5, I guess you do some important stuff over there in DPL, right? So,
Yeah.
what do you think of how we have chosen to kind of run and structure the subforum? Like, I'm looking for like sustains and improvements, right? So, what jumps out at you as being either something that we do well or something that maybe we don't do well that we can improve on?
Something I really like is that there's always a tournament going on that you can join.
Mhm.
Like if there's not something right now, there's something coming in like a month or two.
Mhm.
Where like, you know, if you want to do tournaments, there's always something, which is great. Me personally, I decided that for 2024, I'm only doing team tournaments. So that's kind of what I committed myself to. I'm going super try hard in those, and then not burning myself out with a bunch of individual tours. But the previous year, I entered in a bunch of them, particularly the old gen ones, because I'm a boomer, and that was super fun. So I do enjoy the fact that those exist.
Yeah,
As
it's
for improvements, honestly, it's just getting people to the forums in the Discord server. Once you have like a bunch of people there, it's very easy, I feel like.
yeah.
Reasonable, yeah.
I'm actually the exact opposite, right? Where I play in all of the individual tours, at least
Okay.
honestly most of them, right? Where I played. Well, in the sense that I also don't play a lot of team tours, right? But I play in like the 4 main big or the 5 main big ones, right? It'd be the spring and autumn seasonal or winter seasonal, whatever you call it. And then I play in Oras, Usum, Sword and Shield, whatever it may be. And I enjoy those because they also give me long YouTube videos that usually do pretty well. So I definitely enjoy that. As for like suggestions and improvements, it's hard because I won't pretend like I'm very active on the forum or really active in that server outside of stirring up trouble every once in a while and playing in the tournaments. Oh man, I'm trying to think. Maybe it's more opportunity for like those fun little side formats and things like that, right? Like I don't even know if I would play in them personally. But I think there is a big faction of Draft League that enjoy like the wacky different formats on the side. When I say like wacky, it can be old gen, right? Like I know Emerald Open is like one of the bigger signups, Draft League tournaments every year. So I think maybe some more like old gens, like fun little. I think it doesn't have to be for any points or anything like that, but having more versatility or like options when it comes to like the different individual tournaments that people can sign up for, or maybe even just smaller tournaments that you can run on the side for people who are looking to casually try and things like that. But even then, it's not too big of a gripe. I'm playing in as many tournaments as I possibly humanly could, so it's not necessary for me. So I don't know. Overall, I think Smogon Draft was a really, really good and important thing for the Draft League community to kind of step into that next step. I guess actually no, I do have one. I don't know how, but I'd love for that Wi-Fi project to come back in some way, shape, and form, because I think that's kind of the next step in really growing Draft League, is kind of bridging that gap. So I don't know how that's going to be, but I think it'd be fun.
Well, I'm sure we'll have some conversations about it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It was technically never rescinded or archived or anything,
no.
to my knowledge.
I more so mean just going for it. Yeah, no, I get you. For you though, is there any plugs that you want to plug right now, like immediate coming tournaments, whatever it may be, or just general plugs and links that obviously you can pass me to put in the description when this guy goes live in a couple days?
No, so I'll definitely load you up for the with the links to the forum itself that people will need to kind of figure out what's going on, as well as the Discord and the WPF as well. But that's really the big three, I think outside of those three, if you inundate people with too many more links than that, it's going to be like the draft league or draft, what is it, draft player POV with the pad of paper, the pen or whatever, right? So they'll go on there, they'll read what they want, and if they want to get involved, they'll get involved. So
yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you for joining us today, Rizzo. It was a lot of fun, and again, it gives good people a good place to kind of dip their toes in and start. Because I know in the last podcast we got like 4 or 5 comments of people being like, "What's DCL? What is Smogon? Like, what is Smogon draft? How do I get into the tournament?" Things like that. So this will hopefully give people a good starting place.
Yeah, for sure. And just last little thing I'll say on there as well is that if you are a prospective person who's wanting to get involved in the draft league community, there are so many leagues, not just ones that I oversee, that are kind of tailored to kind of help you get a foot in the door and comfortable with the format and get your questions answered. You just might have to sift for a little while to find you a place that you really enjoy. But that's what I think is one of the beautiful parts about the community, is that you'll find different pockets of the community that are super welcoming to people, and maybe it's a tight-knit group of friends that you can join and hang out with, but the community really is what you make it. So I hope that if you have the questions, you kind of stick with it and ask enough people to get the answers to the questions that you have. So you might stick around and participate in some stuff and find out that you like it, or don't. I don't know, but stick with it.
Perfect. Well, yeah, thanks again, Rizzo. Appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we are back with everybody's favorite session where we're just waffling, just some things we've already maybe touched on a little bit, or just some fun general concepts we've come up with throughout the week and things we want to touch on. And this is one that you kind of mentioned already, but we saw the drop of the last Kingambit in DCL, and it's been a Pokemon that's largely been considered to be a top-tier threat the entire generation up until recently, where it's seen a little bit of a fall-off. What do you kind of like attribute to that? Is there, just a difference in team styles, or is it just kind of people understanding it and its flaws more? What do you think?
So I think it's people understanding SV better. Just how to prep in this format is a little bit different than you prep in other gens, right? Because a lot of times, you need like a well-built team with a bunch of different resists and stuff and all that. But with Terra, if you need a flying resist, you can always have one, right? You just Terra Electric, Terra Steel, whatever. And if you need a dark resist versus Kingambit, it's always available, right? You see a lot of times Encore is very highly sought after in drafting phases because, Encore doesn't care what type you are. Stuff like that. Encore Taunt, Will-O-Wisp, Thunderwave, all of these are like a very limited counterplay when it comes to Terra. So like these kinds of things are like your best option against something like Kingambit, something slow, bulky, sets up.
Plays a little bit slower pace.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so that natural trend towards these more natural counters to Kingambit, if you will, has led to Kingambit not being popular anymore within the top part of the community. Now, this is something that's not really the case anywhere else, right? You were saying in Wi-Fi, Kingambit is still very much a popular pick, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm uploading it right now. We should have our last pools game going up. But in BBR Summer Scramble, I drafted Terra Kingambit. I've been enjoying it. I saw a lot of Terra Kingambit. I think every pool, which I think it was 8 drafting pools total, every single pool had a Kingambit go, and we see it's the exact opposite in DCL. There's actually not a single Kingambit on a team right now. Now, I will say you can kind of see and understand kind of these issues. I really haven't found a lot of success myself personally with those like SD sets anymore. I think it's been like a lot more like AV 4 attacks kind of stuff, and to the credit of that, or to the credit of like Kingambit falling off, if you're not running SD, there's probably better mons that you can Terra and get out of and get a win con out of or something like that. So yeah, it's been the exact opposite in Wi-Fi, right? In BBL too, like obviously that's an Uber's draft where like even more broken shit's allowed, and I know that's already been drafted, and we're in like round 4 or 5 or something like that as of the time of recording this. So it went pretty early on in the draft. I think it went in round 2 or 3. to the coach who ended up drafting it. So yeah, it's definitely really interesting to see kind of the changes in viability. And we talked about Kingambit, but also kind of the rise of Gouging Fire. And it was weird because I remember initially people were like, holy shit, this guy's gonna be broken. I think we even tested it with Terra in TCS for a little bit. That was really not cool, not fire. But without it, you saw it. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if it was because we tried it with Terra first, and then we were like, whoa, let's bring the fucking reins back a little bit. Let's not let Mega Charizard change its typing in the middle of the game. That's not cool. Yeah. We brought it back and we're like, this isn't as broken. That means it's bad. Because it's also a Pokemon I didn't see Draft a lot in the showdown scene. I saw Draft a lot in Wi-Fi because he's cool. He made a great thumbnail, but it's obviously been picking up, and it's, at least to me, it seems when you think about it, like, yeah, of course this mod's good. He's fat as hell, he's strong as hell, and he doesn't have to switch into Stealth Rocks if you don't want him to. Like, it seems like a pretty broken combination.
Yeah, it's like the combination of bulk, setup, recovery, great dual stab, good coverage. Like, what more could you ever want out of a Pokemon, right?
And yeah,
I guess utility, right? It doesn't have that much utility. Like,
could you imagine that guy if he had Wisp? Could you imagine if he had Wisp?
Yeah, that would be so broken. But I remember, like, I think it was before DPL this year, which was in March. I believe it was March where I kind of first had this thought. But Gouging Fire's like main niche is that it wins the game. So like there's not a ton of utility.
You might feel like a choice band set or something. Yeah, you might feel
good.
Yeah. Kind of a luxury more than a need, you know? Like if you have the spot for big Gouging to come in and win the game, you take that.
Yeah. I think it was on the last podcast episode we were talking about how you can kind of like greed your picks by making a super compact defensive core, and that allows you to, you know, spend some points on some luxury offense. Gouging Fire is a perfect example of that, right? So yeah, he's so back.
He is so back. Was he ever gone? Who's to say? But that's obviously a cool one. Now
that's the thing, right? In Wi-Fi, I've seen Gouging Fire just perma pop off. Like,
oh, it's never been bad. Yeah.
every time I've watched like a Wi-Fi league that has like Gouging Fire, it's always like doing incredible things. Like, I saw one guy set up Sun, go into Gouging Fire, and then one shot a Primarina with Flare Blitz.
Yeah, well, I know Uzi's popping off with it. Yeah, I know Uzi's popping off with it. I know Gentleman Thomas drafted the first season that it was like in the game in BBR, and I know he had like a playoff run, did pretty well with it. I remember even Seabad, there was like a cool set where it was like sunny day, but it was like into rain, and it was mono Flare Blitz in a rain, and it like DD'd twice and just kept sunny daying and morning sunning on everything, and just OHKO'd all 4 water types with Flare Blitz. Like it was really cool to see. So it's always like been a popular mon on Wi-Fi, but I'll also say like my own biases as a guy who, you know, plays a lot of both. I kind of saw it and I was like, no, I'm cool. But again, I think that's kind of like the general community opinion of people being like, no, that guy's not good, and everybody's like, well, I don't draft him round 1 then, or I don't draft him then. But it's really been popping off in Showdown, which is cool to see, and it's been going crazy in Wi-Fi. Like we said, Uzi's been like smashing with it in PPL from what I've seen.
For sure, yeah.
Now, I think that's a cool segue too, kind of into the next couple months we're going to talk about. In kind of like the perceived differentness of, I guess it was kind of with like that with Kingambit too. How some mons on Wi-Fi feel like they are very much so like rated a little bit more highly than they are in the showdown scene. And I think like probably one of the biggest examples is the Urshifus, right? I think we talked about this before where like Urshifu and Wi-Fi, like people couldn't fathom the idea of an Urshifu tearing and, doing the things it does, but it's not as, I wouldn't say anybody thinks they're like bad. I don't know, I could be wrong. You tell me that they're shit in a couple seconds. But they're definitely not held to the same standard in the showdown scene. What's your opinion on both of those guys and how viable they really are, opposed to last gen where I know it was general consensus those guys are fucking insane, especially Single Strike?
Yeah, so I don't remember who it was exactly I was talking to, but I remember talking to someone being like, "Oh, this player is still undefeated in PPL, right?" It was Joey and what's his name?
Mount.
No. The two Urshifus that were drafted. Gouging has Rapid Strike, and then who has Single Strike?
I don't remember. Shit, I
Don't
also
bother
don't.
me. I'm gonna look this up. But they were like, yeah, of course they're undefeated. They have an Urshifu, and that was the sentiment, right?
Yeah, they got the broken guy. Well, I know in Joey
was
leagues,
Q.
it was Q.
Q, the
Okay, yeah.
Costa Rican.
Well,
Yeah.
I know in Joey leagues in the past, I see Joey leagues in leagues he'd been playing in like SPL where they were doing the tiers. They had Rapid Strike banned. This is the first time he used it because this is the first league. Now, obviously, the Wi-Fi leagues that I play in, I don't ban it myself, and I don't see it to that standard. But they ban it, and I don't know if it's partly because of like a Smogon association where the mods are like a lot better in that format and that kind of thing, or what it is, but they kind of just axed it. Part of it, from what I've talked to them about that, I'm like, yo, why the fuck's that guy banned? It's been because they don't think he's very fun to play against and don't think he's very interesting, which is a valid thing too. But still, I also don't think of it in that way. Like, slap my Rocky helmet on or find out if your pads, like it's kind of how I see
very
it.
Similar, very similar to, you remember back in the day, Gen 7, GBA, they banned Necrozma.
Oh,
it feels very similar to that. They're like, nobody thinks Necrozma's broken, but it's just banned in the most popular Wi-Fi league.
Why? Because fuck him.
Right? Feels very similar. But anyways, on the Showdown side, right, Urshifu, this is a great statistic. I love this. In DPL Season 7, right, which was not this most recent one, but the one before that, Urshifu Single Strike before mids was completely winless. Unless it was facing another Urshifu Single Strike. Then one of them had to win. That was just the funniest thing.
Dude, again, especially because like that was him in Gen 8. It
did have a much better second half of the season, but I think it still ended up negative, of course, because, terrible first half. But the Mon is like, it's scary, but it's never gonna like
completely mow you over with that speed tier.
Yeah, the speed tier is not quite good enough. It's not quite strong enough where a Scarf set is gonna absolutely destroy you. Don't get me wrong, it is strong, and especially with Terra, it can break through the fairy types.
That Wicked Blow difference feels
a big stop to it. Yeah, the Wicked Blow nerf, you could feel it. Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't have any specific calcs off the top of my head. Like, you used to do it, KO this guy, now you don't. But when you use it, you're like, wow, I don't do enough damage to everything, or I'm banded and I do enough damage, but the metagame is so offensive and things are so fast-paced now that everything fucking kills me before I do any damage back. So, I don't know, when I've used Urshifu this generation, in a lot of matchups, especially matchups into teams I would consider, structurally sound, you feel like you have to go Scarf in most of them, too.
I feel like a lot of the choice sets are definitely good on Single Strike. It doesn't really use SD very often, although I have seen it a few times with SD Trailblaze Defensive Terra. I've seen it win maybe 1 or 2 games, and I've seen it used a lot more than 1 or 2 times, you know what I mean? But yeah, it's just not as consistent as some of the other high tier Terra options that are available for that format. Rapid Strike, on the other hand, this guy is so good at being SD Punching Glove, Surging Strikes, CC Drain Punch, Aqua Jet, any of those moves. It's just so good. I've been using it for the past 3 weeks. It's been amazing in mocks, amazing in the game, so good. I've been Terraing it, so it's my Terramon. A lot of fat defensive Terra. In mocks I did try some other sets, of course, but I found that to be very consistent. So I brought it twice out of 3 weeks or something like that. But yeah, I am a Rapid Shifu believer. So I know a lot of people aren't. A lot of people think it's worse than Quaquaval, which is ridiculous. they're smoking something illegal
Very
substance.
loud.
Yeah.
No,
But,
I
yeah.
think Shifu Shifu Rabbit might be seeing a little bit more success this generation, because single, again, in the past it felt like it could kind of just brute force its way through matchups, and that's why it was good, because it just fucking punched. And there was a lot of fairies that would just typically get a little bit more whittled down, but now there isn't an extra fairy on a team with, Terra, and water in fighting feels much better neutrally into a lot of things.
There's no single Terra type you can be that covers
Both
water
of them.
and fighting.
Yeah, whereas there is fairy.
Such
Yeah,
a big deal.
Yeah, which is there is fairy for dark fighting.
And it's just so slappable, right? Oh no, I'm going out of my way to run Terra Fairy, right? Come on, like you wanted to do that anyway.
Means,
just giving you that excuse.
Yeah, no, 100%. That's what I mean. And even in like game and in practice, right? Like, there's been matchups like Joey has in PPL where I've been mocking him for that, and you'll have a switch into something. I'll be like, oh shit, let's go. I take Surge and Strikes really well. I take 70 from fucking Banded Close Combat though, because that's not cool. Because it's really hard to find a Pokemon that can consistently switch into both of those dual stabs. It's really just like select dragons, like Dragonites and shit. And again, that's just the first one that comes to mind. Yeah, I just got Ice Spinner to the face, and then you die. So it's not like, again, also Aqua Jet is also more consistent priority. So maybe Shifu Rapid feels better because it's just more consistent at what it does. It consistently breaks through teams a little better.
I brought you on the Rapid Foo over Single Strike train. This is awesome. I hope to convert many of the viewers as well.
Yeah, welcome to our church. This is no longer the 2KO podcast. This is the Church of Urshifu Rapid Strike.
This is something I've said for a long time. Like, since we were tiering, I was on the tiering committee for DCL this past season, and on their spreadsheet, I put that Rapid Strike is better than Single Strike. However, I left a note that says, y'all are not ready for this conversation yet. And then,
and then
I was right, they weren't. In the chat, they were all just like, you're an idiot, you're so stupid. Time will tell, right?
There you go. We'll see you next time. But yeah, and then the other one we want to talk about was Dragapult. I think this is a great thing that we're talking about this, because I get shit for this all the time in Wi-Fi. I think I've officially gotten to the point in my life where I was like, okay, I'm done allowing these guys just because Wi-Fi leaks allow them. We're banning Dragapult. We're not allowing this dickhead to play anymore, because whoever gets it just wins. It's a very not fair, stupid Pokemon. But very often, and again, it's not a bad thing, people will be like, why are you banning Dragapult in these leagues? It doesn't make any sense. He doesn't do that much damage. He doesn't OHKO all the Pokemon. He can't be broken. What is the best way to kind of explain why Pult is very, very good, very, very broken, to be honest?
Well, the main thing, right? You're never going to find a bad Pult matchup, ever. It doesn't exist. There's always a set that 2KO's the whole roster. That's what I found.
It might take a little bit more pre-planning to get there, but...
Yeah. Yeah, it's just offensively so good. The coverage is so good. It's so fast. And the offensive typing, Ghost, probably the best offensive typing in SV. Then Dragon, not bad either, right? Especially when you have stuff like Flamethrower, Fire Blast, all sorts of coverage to hit steel types and stuff like that. Now, bulky fairies are probably your best bet, right? But they don't like taking Spec Shadow Ball. They don't enjoy it. That drop, all of a sudden, you're breaking open the whole team. Or you just U-turn on it and go into something, Oh
yeah, it's simultaneously great at forcing its own progress with just clicking attacks. Like you said, Spit F drop, you're screwed. Rocks are up, you're screwed. If you don't click some kind of recovery move, you're screwed next time to the Shadow Ball. But it's also simultaneously like one of the best facilitators of like your round 2 and 3 offense guys, like ever. Whether it be like a really strong poison or steel or something, like some kind of strong fairy killer, or a really strong offensive fighting that also helps you keep up initiative if you do play into like a really good Spadef Ghost resist and you turn out on that guy. I think I'm always really interested to think of like what would Pult look like in like a metagame with Pursuit. I don't know if it would be like bad but it might be obviously much easier to deal with. I think it's the fact that it just clicks whatever it wants unpunished, and you're usually fine afterwards. So I think if it was really good at breaking for itself, sure. If it was really good at facilitating other offense, sure. I think it's the fact that it does both while being faster than everything in the matchup and forcing really specific prep, really specific scarfers, forcing you into really passive turns where you come in with your Clefable and you take the Spec Shadow Ball, but you better fucking soft boil or you're going to lose to it next time it comes in, is what kind of puts it to that level.
Yeah, it's kind of that, and then like it feels pretty similar to like Sword and Shield Coco, where like it's faster than everything, but the main difference is Sword and Shield Coco doesn't have coverage. Dragapult hits everything super effectively, or like at least a very strong stab neutral hit. So
or
like,
it burns them, or it T-waves them, or something like that, which is also a big utility thing, right?
All of the utility, has all of the coverage. It's a good mixed attacker. You know, it can just boots, dance around everything with U-turn.
Never being able to punish it, because if it's faster than you, it's just going to U-turn out. You take the little chip and, get put in a bad position potentially, or if it knows your Scar, or if you're faster, it's just going to switch out. It's really hard to put damage on a Boots Pult. It's really hard to put, and because of those pseudo stats too, I guess you kind of just keep finding things that's broken about it. Because of the pseudo level stats, you don't Oko it all the time. Even with, the Fairy type that's clicking Moonblast, you might be doing 75 to like 88 or something like that, opposed to picking up that Oko and getting rid of it. It's not like frail, So.
It's able to spin block if you want it to. Like, that's another option for it. But yeah, in general, I think it's just too fast, too strong, too good. It should not be allowed. But Wi-Fi leagues, they tend to see it differently. Whereas like, it's fine, right?
It doesn't get 6 kills.
And what's the first pick every single draft? It's Dragapult, right?
Yeah. No, 100%. Or it's the second pick because the guy at the front's like, I'm not doing it. It's not worth it. I want to draft the thumbnail guy, blah, blah, blah. But it's the first pick in everybody's heart. If you get lucky and you get the second pick Pult, then it's sick. But
like, if Pult falls to pick 2, it's a mistake, right?
Oh, yeah.
If you think about it like that,
people are screaming in the chat.
It's like, okay. Okay, man.
Exactly. Or like, again, in BBL, it's an Ubers league. I can tell you right now, no spoilers on who got it or when they got it. Pult went before many of the other Ubers, and it is like classified as an Uber. There are guys that are on box arts and a bunch of broken crazy stats, but because Pult is so good at what it does and pairs so well with a lot of these big broken guys, it went like really, really early in round 2, opposed to like, there were some still like world ender guys on the board. So I don't know, it just kind of goes to show. But moving on from our good old waffling session, I think it's about time we get into some questions for us on the podcast. So we're going to go ahead, switch our screens back over as I have to manually edit this because I don't got the time to do that. We're going to make it nice and big for you guys. But we have 4 questions today. The first of which is going to be from Lantern Comic, saying, what exactly, in your opinion, makes a Pokemon noob bait? I've seen the phrase tossed out a lot from Owen, and like honestly half of the high tier mons that, like, it's me saying it, and half of the high tier mons that exist. I guess the best way to put this is like, I call them like noob bait, or they're like noob killer mons. They're mons that typically players have a lot of trouble when they just are starting out and figuring out and getting into draft. Typically have a lot of trouble in handling, dealing with, and maybe they overinflate how good they are when they're tiering, when they're explaining, when they're talking about them. And I have a million mons that come to mind throughout the generations of me playing. And I'll kind of get into some of mine, but what are the biggest examples of like a noob killer mon that you see, and, explain maybe a little bit why?
Ready for the mic drop?
Oh, man.
Kingambit.
Full circle, baby. The podcast is over. You guys have a great rest of your night.
How cold was that? All right. Okay, but realistically, I do think Kingambit is up there because, it is the less obvious things that check Kingambit. The Encores, the like status things, because it's
Mhm.
going to Terra to a type that's good into your team. So you're not really going to be able to like just raw 1v1 it with super
Brute
effective
force
damage.
it, yeah.
But it's stuff like Rocky Helmet, you know, sub on Sucker. Nobody wants to play Sucker mind games, especially when there's like so many ways to outplay it.
Mhm.
That's something you saw like so often is like Rocky Helmet, Fizz Def, Tinkaton as the Kingambit answer. And
Just
there's just no
encores
way
it
for
forever.
Kingambit to do
Yeah.
anything
Puts it in
besides
jail.
attack it, take at least 3 helmet hits, and then what?
Be at
You're
30%
revenged by
slower than
something.
everything.
If
Yeah.
Tinkaton just got rocks up, it T-waved you because you can't sucker punch it. And then if you did sucker punch, it encores, like it switches in on a sucker punch, encores, rocks are up. Something's getting T-waved, you know, it's just like utility mons like that are so good at stopping these like
Mhm.
these kinds of things. Something like Cresselia is the classic example, whereas
That guy's broken. Nothing on my team 3 KOs it. I can't do anything. It has me in jail. Yeah, taunt, toxic, encore, a bunch of different things, right?
like I remember back in the day, basically nobody ever used taunt or encore. Nobody. What happened was, if my Pokemon doesn't just 2-hit KO your Pokemon,
I'm switching.
I put toxic.
Oh yeah.
I put toxic on
There you
everything.
go. There you go.
And so what you see is sub Calm Mind Cresselia just insta 6-0s everybody. And this is something I saw so many times, but it's so easy to prevent if you just, you know, open your mind a little bit to the possibilities, right?
Uh-huh.
So that's a great one. Clefable.
Reuniclus back in the day, not anymore. I haven't seen anybody
Yeah.
lose to Reuniclus in a long time. But when I first started playing Gen 7 Reuniclus, I mean, that was the better draft your Dark type or you're gonna lose to Double Dance for Uniclus, you know, that kind of thing.
It's always the example.
Uh-huh.
But Clefable is a kind of unique one, whereas it can still kind of like defeat the good players. But most of the people who lose to like Calm Mind Clefable or like Cosmic Power Clefable, they're going to be, you know, not the strongest. Because there is a lot to counterplay it. It's just you need to know what to do against it. You can't just sit there, it's immune to toxic. Oh no, you know what I mean?
How do I beat this? Yeah.
Yeah. Reuniclus, same thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Reuni, another big one back in the day was Suicune. Lots of sub CM Suicunes. Making somebody never play draft again.
Crocoon and Vincoon, both of them.
If there's a way you can't toxic it back at Gen 7, then it was broken and it was going to set up and win the game.
Yeah.
I think more modern examples, obviously you said Kingambit, which is a really good one. But Espathra, as someone who plays Wi-Fi, again, in what do you call it? In the tournament, there's multiple people like, why the fuck is this guy allowed to Terra and why is he so cheap? And I'm like, I'd draft him. Please. Go ahead, man. I played one in pools and I was like, let's go. That's the Terramon I'm playing. I think to a lesser extent, because I actually, speaking of the Scramble, I saw Kaz use it really well, and it wasn't necessarily in like, this is my herd or win con every week, but a lot of Wi-Fi guys have like a really big like Quackleval, like this guy's the GOAT like kind of opinion. He Aqua Step and Moxies and then he wins the game. I mean, yeah, probably if you let him do all those things, if you let him Swords Dance and Aqua Step and kill something, and sure.
That's another mon. Quaquavel, yeah.
So it's another guy that maybe some people overinflate, and part of it too is also personal experience, right? If you're playing in a league with some newer players and you get 27 kills with Quaquaval and that's your one experience with the guy, you might think he's a little bit broken, you know? Like it's just kind of a product of it. I'm sure there are more examples, but those are kind of the immediate ones that stick out to me. Is there any more that you can even think of?
Well, stuff like Quaquaval, right? It's really broken until you realize you can just run physically defensive bulky psychic with Rocky Helmet and there's nothing it can do.
Yeah. I mean, Knockoff was nice for it. But yeah, it's not doing as much as you think it is. Yeah.
It almost never fits Knockoff, right? You need your Aqua Step. You probably want a Fighting Stab. You want SD. You want Roost. You want Rapid Spin. You want Aqua Jet. You want Ice Spinner. There's so many things that Quaquaval wants to run. Knockoff is really rare. That's my point.
Yeah, and again, the way I saw it used recently was was in like that kind of like guy who is strong, but strong utility spinner that can kind of snowball a little bit. So I'll do well in Scramble. So like, that's cool. I think it's just people overinflated a little bit. And again, it's also not to say that all of these mons are terrible on their own, like Clefable, obviously. Well, that is actually, maybe we'll say that for next podcast. I haven't seen any Clefable this generation. I feel like he's terrible now. I don't know. I could be wrong.
Monte has it in PPL, and it's been doing pretty well for him. That being said, one last thing about Quabble, it is like mirror herb bait in a way. Like Aqua Step, you're giving your opponent a speed boost as well. Or if you SD, even worse, you know?
Oh no.
Yeah. So there's always that sort of thing. A lot of these Pokemon are like Blastoise with a Shell Smash, Cloyster.
Torterra, when that dropped, everybody like, this guy's going to be the GOAT. And
then you realize your opponent runs Mirror Herb, and if you Shell Smash, you will lose the game immediately. So it's just, basically, if you're playing anyone competent, the move Shell Smash is banned. You cannot
You're not allowed to run it anymore. You better run your Swords Dance Rock Polish Torterra, or I'm going to fight you.
Unless you have exactly a Ditto.
Double Uno reverse card.
Yeah. Right.
There you go. Yeah, that's definitely fair. Like some Poltegeist type stuff. And again, you might get smoked by it, but I don't mean it's good. Yeah.
Like I know AIM in PPL had a Poltegeist for a while. He dropped it recently, but he was like every week. He's like, how can I make this work? Right? I really want to use Poltegeist, and every time it's like, well,
you can't.
This isn't the matchup, you know, this isn't good. And so he finally brought it one week as like a Shell Smash guy. He's just like, if you're Mirror Herb, you deserve the win. I'm just clicking it, you know?
Oh, and it's always a terrifying thing in the back of your mind. Like, dude. Yeah. And then, or they just might not be, and you don't smash, and you're expecting them to pivot into the Mirror Herb guy, and then you lose them all, and you're like, oh, damn it. Like, this didn't work out. Oh, yeah. Poor Cloyster. Cloyster would have been so fun if Mirror Herb didn't exist with Terra. That guy would have been shice. But yeah, that kind of is what we qualify as like a noob Hitmon. Something you can't just like brute force or switch in and not get to it KO'd for in order to beat. And then people kind of overinflate it because of that. And they aren't putting on their thinking caps on how to actually beat through that guy. Next up, we have our favorite question of the podcast. The Turbo Glaze question from the Hunky Donkey. So I'm going to go ahead and read this out. You're up first. Hunky asks, at King L5, as one of the strongest draft league players since the meta's creation, do you ever feel the pressure of people, including yourself, including yourself, holding you up to an incredibly high standard playing draft, especially in matches within DPL and DCL?
Yes. So basically, right, in the past 2 years about, I've had really strong team tour results. My worst tournament in recent memory is DPL, where I went 4-3, so still positive. And I was actually still the second best ORAS record because everyone else in ORAS sucked that season, or like everyone was kind of mid, and then there was like Zazo at the top, and then it was me. It was a bunch of stuff. But 4-3, I see that as like a bad season now because my expectation for myself is so high. And then for the Smogon tournaments, right? Draft League World Cup, I went 6-1. The previous DCL 1, I went 7-2, and then this DCL right now going on, I'm 4-0 right now. So I hold myself to a high standard in that sort of thing because I have teammates relying on me, and I just want to prove myself as like one of the best ever, right? At this point, I've been doing this for a long time. I want to do good, you know. It's simple as that.
Well, and it is also kind of. Go ahead.
I'm still going after that custom avatar, you know. That's
true.
We didn't get that for winning World Cup. We just got a pat on the back and a Discord roll.
Big.
But for DCL, we would get custom avatars, so I'm going hard on the paint for that. I'm trying super hard this season.
So, and that is like a part of it too, is like the team tour mentality. A lot of people like who haven't played it don't really understand it. I don't have half as much team tour experience, but I know for a fact anytime I've played in any kind of team tour scenario, whether it be week 3 and we've already won the series, or whether it be in finals, or like I had to play a game in Clash season that we won. It was my game, win and we're in playoffs, lose and we're out. To get in and sneak in on the 4th, dude, I was shaking in my chair, dude. I was spooked. But that is also part of the fun, right? Because I again, now when I ran a random draft league tournament game, you know, like an individual tour or like a draft league thing, I'm like, nice. I'm gonna go eat lunch, you know. But like you win the team tour game, and you're like, dude, you're jumping, you're hyped. So, but also at the same time, there's like that negative side of, if I lose, I lost for everybody. I just lose for me. Like people are not gonna be happy. They might not be mean to my face, but I know they're not gonna be happy with me behind closed doors. So it is a little bit of a different kind of experience, especially when you are very much so expected to win all of the time, and you don't get an off game when you're at the top. You know, people are gonna get on you whether or not you're 6-1 or 1-6 when you lose.
Yeah, like some of my best moments in draft are from team tournaments, right? So like, even after all this time, it wasn't even that crazy of a game, but season 4 of DPL, which is like so long ago at this point, it's like 4 years or something, but that was the season that I won MVP and won the whole tournament with my team, and my semifinals match against Skyhorse. That was like the game that clinched making finals. It was a semifinals game. If I won, we made finals, and if I lost, it was like a tiebreaker or something like that. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I remember this was the game that clinched finals. And after that game, the feeling was so good, right?
Oh, it's like euphoric.
The adrenaline. Yeah, it's like I literally went like this in front of my computer.
Like you just won Game 7 of the World Series.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Like, that was so awesome of a feeling. And like, I kind of had the similar thing this past week against Habita, which is another amazing SV player, probably one of the better ones in the scene right now. And so it was me versus him, heavyweight matchup, right? I won literally all of my mocks. But then in the actual game, I kind of clicked too fast. I didn't fully think out the whole thing. So I made a mistake early game, but then the end game was like super tight, and I switched in Meowscarada on a Specs Iron Crown Psychic, and then I play roughed the switch into Slitherwing, and I missed. And then he went back to Iron Crown, but it was weak, and I was choice banned, so at 2 it KO'd, barely. And then play rough swept the whole end game.
There you go.
And that was so much adrenaline. Like,
oh yeah, no,
you're never gonna get
it sounds silly, like to be playing Pokemon. You literally get the shakes, like you're sitting there like shaking as you're pressing your buttons.
That was so sick.
Yeah.
Like,
oh, 100%. You see 100 people in the game, like, oh, for sure.
My team server, they're like, "You're the GOAT," whatever. You're so good, whatever. And I'm like, I threw early game, but I'm the GOAT.
I fucking won.
Yeah. What a beast.
Yeah. There you go.
And like, that's something you're never gonna get from just a regular old league. So that's, I'm the guy that invented team tours in the draft format, and I'm so glad I did. Some of my best memories are from that. So
yeah. All right. Similarly, it's my turn now. At Owen, being one of the larger creators in the Wi-Fi scene, do you feel pressure leading people by example, whether it be the actual battle or through content creation perspective? Now, from content, not really. I like to put more effort into videos. I like hiring Sunny to make the cool team builders, but I mean, my favorite draft league videos to watch from Wi-Fi creators is like Mounte. I love watching Mounte's video. He dresses up in the fun suit. He has the fun intro. He does like his edited team builders, but he's not like, full feature-length movie productioning his videos, but he's really good at the game. I like watching him. And that's kind of like the idea that I want to go for, right? I want the game to be fun to click on. I want the average person who maybe doesn't know draft to click on the video, but I want people to watch because they're like, this is a fun format and this guy's really good, or this guy's winning games and that's a good time. Or like, I've been watching Kaz a lot, obviously, in his BBR, very good player. He's just recording a team builder and playing it. So from a content perspective, not really, but from an actual battle, yeah, I'm sure all of you know this. I was talking with Nexus about this the other day in his stream. I also think it's a very hard thing to play on Wi-Fi and lose, like, ever. I don't have like 100% win rate. I'm not going 9-0 in all my leagues and winning the championship. I'm doing well in most of them. But that one game that you lose, not only do you have to experience playing like shit and getting your ass beat, you have to sit down, you have to edit it. You have to make a team builder, and then you have to be like, "Hey, world, look at this again. I got smoked."
lost.
Yeah, dude.
This
I mean,
is
like,
awesome.
yeah, it's an inevitability. It sucks. It's part of the gig, you know. And you always tell people like, "Oh, it's part of it." But it does suck, and obviously it's something that I've had to work on. You know, I really don't like losing, and sometimes I get a little upset when I lose, and I think I've gotten a lot better at it. I might should talk a little bit, but I think I've gotten a lot better at it. But I mean, yeah, and that's part of like the leading by example thing is like, right, yeah, like I think it's normal to be mad. I think it's annoying when people are like, it's just a game, have fun. No, I put like 2 hours into the build, and I gotta upload this. I'm gonna be pissed. But there is like a certain level of respect you have to give, and not getting too upset or not getting upset at people. And I think that is important for me to lead by example when I do that, because it's something that I have struggled with in the past and not done very well. I don't think I've had anybody get mad at me this gen. So I think it's like 2.5 years of doing a pretty good job at it. At least on YouTube videos. Maybe if I'm on a room, I'll punch my desk or something like that. But
don't hate the player, hate the game, you know?
Yeah, exactly. It definitely is. But yeah, it is a frustrating thing ever having to, you know, upload losses. It's also really fun uploading you winning a championship, you know, and things like that. And it's also hard to remain neutral in your title and thumbnailing and not super spoiling it or just, you know, making a video go to shit. So yeah, I think that's probably the most important thing, right? Is like, I obviously want to grow as a creator. I want to, and that's kind of like my goal at this point is obviously I want to grow the channel and kind of grow the scene, and with a lot of new players kind of, you know, seeing the format through you know, us Wi-Fi guys. But I also want to get better. I don't just play in Showdown leagues. I like to try and play in the Showdown tours. I like to try out for, you know, different team turns, things like that. Like, I'll tell you guys, I tried out for a couple DCL teams. I didn't make it. It's tough, you know, like, so I think that leading by example and just kind of like carrying yourself correctly is important. But also understanding that, like, losing sucks, and it's okay to be, you know, a little upset when you lose or when you don't reach the goal. It shows that, you know, you're putting in the effort and you care. So yeah, overall, I do feel the pressure a little bit. If
it's just another loss, you know, do you even care? You know, are you even invested?
Yeah, exactly. That's 100% a good way to think of it. And again, it shouldn't ruin your day, but being like, shit, dude.
Well, I've had it. I've had it ruin my day before.
Yeah.
But also, it makes my day when I win. So
yeah, like I spent multiple hours mocking and building for this game this week, and I sat down, and especially with Wi-Fi, man, it's not like you're jumping on. I can play Showdown game on my phone if I want. I got to block out an hour and a half of my day to come sit down and play you. I'd be a little upset when I lose. You know, it's bound to happen.
Especially for these like DCL games, I've been putting easily 15 hours into my builds.
Oh yeah, like the team tour aspect it's a crazy grind. It's a crazy.
I've been going. This is the hardest I've tried for a team tour this season.
Even more than any other DPL season or anything like that.
Yeah.
Oh.
I really want to win.
And again, it's also not just like a Wi-Fi thing. I can promise you, I get annoyed when I lose in my random farm league too, or, you know, whatever it may be, or you know, in a team tournament like Clash Kings, like DPL when I got picked up at mids and I lost those 2 games. I was pretty pissed after those ones too. I was not in a good mood the rest of the day, or at least for a little bit after. So it's there's definitely a lot of pressure in that regard, but I think I've gotten a little bit better at dealing with it at the very least. I still definitely have some work to do on it. I still definitely get pretty pissed after, or like, or at least for a couple hours after. It's all you're thinking about. But I also think that just having a little bit of passion is kind of going to be the main thing that's going to kind of propel you forward. Because if you don't care, then why are you playing, you know, in those high stakes situations? But yeah, let's move on to the next one. We have MNAS back to more of like a draft ruling / playing kind of thing. He asked, also, I prefer a league that, he was kind of talking about low tier Terra and things like that. And he was basically saying that he prefers low tier Terra, you know, limiting to captains to like 10 points and below. This is often what you see in a lot of Wi-Fi leagues. Really limiting the mons that can Terra, and how they can Terra is another way, as you see as well, with, you know, 1 Terra type, 2 Terra type, 3, 4, you know, whatever's happening. He said he finds it more exciting to draft and prep and play. Am I the only one like this? Well, your question, the answer is obviously no, right? Like, a lot of people prefer this, especially in the Wi-Fi scene. But I figured it was more interesting to approach this in the sense of like, why is this not, I don't want to say wrong, because you play however you want, but why is this not the most optimal way of approaching Terra as a rule set?
So I'm gonna stop you there. There is no like objective correct way to do it, right? If this is something that you enjoy, and you and your friends like it, go ahead and do it. No one's gonna stop you. It's just, if that's what you prefer, then that's what you prefer. Me personally, I like it when the big dogs can Terra, and so that's the formats that I play. It's nothing about which one is like correct. It's just, what do you prefer, right? And there's something for everybody. Are you the only person like this? No. I feel like a lot of people really enjoy the low tier Terra, where like you get to see this Pokemon that normally you wouldn't see pop off, all of a sudden it's doing super well because it has Terra, and it's just so happens to be a great Terra abuser that normally you wouldn't see. So something like Kilowattrel is a great example. Like, nobody uses that really until Terra, but now you have a really strong flying stab with Terra Blast that doesn't miss. Super reliable, very great. You now have coverage options, Terra Ice, Terra Ground, kind of sort of that. Even Terra Grass, but like that's a great Pokemon as an example of like, that could definitely, I could see how that's fun, right? I could see how I have a Colossal. Normally this Pokemon is not very good, pretty trash, a lot of 4x weaknesses, but good stats, decent move pool. Now you Terra it, I could see how that's fun. It's just not my personal preferred way of doing it. I like when you have to play the Terra Ogre Pawns and it's a big deal. Terra Raging Bolt, you're like, whoa, this is a lot of power. Let me figure out a way around this. But then I also have those big tools as well. Those kind of more like the heavyweight versus the lightweight. Some people in the like what is that? MMA, whatever. Some people like watching the heavyweights. Some people, the lightweights.
Featherweights.
I'm not invested, but I'm sure people have their preferences. Yeah, to each their own, literally.
Yeah. Now, do you think there's a reason that they're like, because obviously we see like, most of like, and it's not even honestly true in the sense that like only Wi-Fi leagues do this, right? Like a lot of, just random leagues, right? They do like the same Terra format because they're watching Wi-Fi leagues and that has a lot of visibility. Do you think that there's a reason? Yeah. Do you think that there's a reason that like the Showdown side, the more competitive side, do you think there's a reason that they all kind of gravitate towards like high tier Terra, free Terra, Terra preview? Is it just because that was the standard set? In like,
if I'm 100% honest, I'm 100% honest, I think I had a big deal about that.
Is it because of the DPL season, that first DPL?
DPL was the first league ever to have Terra preview. And I thought that was such an important part of Terra that you just had to have it, or else it feels uncompetitive, right? You're just guessing Terra types. I wonder what type this is going to be. If I guess wrong, I lose. Getting rid of that, but maintaining multiple Terra users, that was really important for me, because then you have opportunity cost. If you just lead off with your Terra guy in Terra, all of a sudden your second guy can't Terra. And that was something that you saw in OU being a really, really important part of Terra that I wanted to preserve. And also, since a draft is generally modeled around the power level of OU, not always, but generally speaking, you're not going to be allowing Ubers most of the time. So given OU had open Terra, still does, that's kind of what we introduced in DPL, and a lot of people had been doing as well. The main difference was Terra Preview made it so that it wasn't broken, and that, so we could do that. So it opened up the option of leaving pretty much everything able to Terra. Obviously, some things are going to be banned because they're too good, too hard to find reliable counterplay. But you allow as many things as possible to kind of mean that there's more options. Now, sometimes you can make the argument that more options actually ends up being less options because you have to go with the most viable things. And if you kind of stray off and go for your, like, what's a good example? Like Terra Iron Hands. Not going to be blowing everyone's socks off, but it's certainly fun. I've used that before in the past in one of the tournaments, and while it was definitely good, it wasn't as good as some of my opponent's Terramons. So while I did end up doing pretty well in that tournament, I think I got like top 16 or something like that, I didn't end up going further than that. So there is that. Yeah, it's just stuff like that.
So yeah, it's more so not necessarily because this is the only correct way to do Terra. It's just kind of what the standard of what your community is kind of set, right? And Wi-Fi, a lot of it is lower tier Terra. You know, you can only have 3 set Terra types or whatever it may be. And in the showdown side, when the bigger tournaments run it a certain way, and the opinion of the bigger tournament guys is that this is the best way to approach it, to them, it's just people are going to do that.
I thought it was a great solution, and then we did a poll afterwards of the season, and most people saw it pretty favorably. Mm-hmm. So the general consensus was this is a good format, right? And what you're looking for in a format is for something that is competitive. You know, the better player usually is going to win. That's something that you want to happen. And then you want the players to enjoy it. So if you can satisfy those two things, what more do you need?
Sure.
And then I also had my hand in a few cookie jars in different leagues, being like, hey, you should do Terra Preview with open Terra types. It's so good. You should do it. We did it in DCL, or not DCL, DPL, and it was great. People liked it for the most part. Some people didn't, but you know, I'm pretty sure most people are used to it by now.
At this point, yeah.
They're like, you should do this, and then a bunch of different leagues started doing it, and now it's the standard. And I like to think that I have a good part in that, so ego up, but I do genuinely think it's the best format.
Yeah, and my recommendation too is if you've played one Terra type kind of or one format pretty much only, maybe give the other one a shot, see how it goes. You might be surprised as to you know how it feels balance wise and things like that. Alrighty, we have one more question for the day. We'll try and keep this one short and concise so we can get on to the game of the week and things like that. But we'll just give some general kind of tips and tricks right here. We have Zodiac saying, what are some common mistakes you see mid-level draft league players make that prevent them from improving to high-level draft league players? Now, this isn't to say like brand new player, you're just getting on, you know, how do you become a high-level draft league player? You gotta kind of get your licks in and play a little bit before we start talking about that. So you've been playing for a couple years and you're doing well, but maybe not to the consistent level you want, or you run into the big dogs and you're like, oh shit, I don't win very much when I play them. What are some mistakes you see those mid-level guys making?
So a lot of it is prep-wise, and then some of it is drafting, and some of it is playing, right? There's the 3 main categories. So drafting-wise, some people, they'll draft teams that are like trying to tick too many boxes, and they end up being average at best at everything, but they don't excel anywhere. So like, while you're not going to lose immediately to any one particular thing, you're also not necessarily going to win the game in any concrete way at any particular speed. So you end up in these long, drawn-out games where maybe your opponent's win cons do end up breaking through before you have a chance to like find a win path. You see a lot of people showing up with like Corviknight, Screamtail, something that a lot of people new to the format will do is they'll draft stuff like Chansey, Skarmory. They'll be like, I have so high defenses, they're never going to break past me. That's more of like a super beginner kind of thing, but
the general idea.
Generally speaking, offense is going to beat defense in draft. So you'll find as players get better, they tend to gravitate more towards offensive builds and more like bulky offense, balance at most. But then like offense, you have a lot of teams like these days particularly built for hyper offense, which is something that you didn't really see in previous gens that much, but it works in SV more
especially
often.
this gen. Yeah, especially.
Yeah. Another thing.
Oh, go ahead.
I'll just add one more thing and then you can go. They'll try to hit everything on the whole draft with one moveset.
We talked about this a little last time.
Yeah, 4 coverage moves, and you're like, well, is that really the best use of my Pokemon? Sure, you can, in theory, 2-hit KO the whole roster with choice specs 4 coverage moves if you click the button right every single time. This is something that you see a lot when newer players are prepping. They'll be like, specs 2-hit kills the whole roster, or choice band 2-hit kills the whole roster, as long as I click the exact perfect move every single time. And then that's so unreasonable, right? It's so inconsistent. Inconsistent is the word, but yeah, that's something as well. I'm all for having choice breakers. I think it's one of the better items in the game. But for me, if I'm bringing something that's choice band or choice specs, I need to have a move that's spammable. That's like the key thing. I don't want to have to guess between which of my 4 moves is going to get a KO on whichever switch in he goes to. I want to be able to click close combat, and my opponent doesn't have a very good resist to it. So I know that close combat is always going to be good value, or like they have 1 resist, and if I catch it 1 time, then I click through the rest of the game. So it's stuff like that where I'm like, yes, choice band is excellent here, I'll bring it, but I'm not spamming choice band every single game, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that kind of helps people get to the next level from wherever they're at is something that I've been working on recently, especially too, is I think this kind of goes into the build, especially. I think one, being more prepared in your builds, and especially being more prepared with your lead, I think is a really, really important thing. It's not necessarily having a designated lead, and this is my focus sash spiker who gets up 2 spikes in Destiny or whatever it is, but I think having a general idea of what you're leading and what your play path after said lead, depending on what your opponent leads into, is something that I think is very, very important in the build process. I think if you're starting every game going 50-50, either on the front foot or on the back foot, depending on what you're leading, and you're kind of getting into the team briefing, you're like, I'm leading Ments here, you know? I feel like you're not going to see as consistent of results. And again, it doesn't necessarily have to be your hazard setter that beats X Pokemon. It can be a more offensively tailored lead. It could be a more defensively tailored lead. It could be something that's getting a slow pivot in a moment you turn out, or it could be something that is best into their potential leads, but has an option, or you have good play paths if they don't. So I think that's a really, really big one. That I think is a big one for guys trying to improve their play to that next level.
Yeah, one last thing for me to mention, just watch a lot of games. Every time you watch a game and you're actively thinking about it, this is the key, you have to actually think. Try to guess on both sides what the sets are going to be before they get revealed. And if you play that game over and over and over again, and then the sets are revealed, you're going to be like, oh, I didn't realize that this set even existed. So now that's one little thing that now you have in the back of your mind when you're prepping, you know that exists. And so you're like, oh, I remember seeing whatever example, I remember seeing Xmon and they actually used Endure weakness policy. And I thought that was so cool. And it actually looks really good in this matchup. So I'm going to bring it. It's something that maybe you wouldn't have thought of yourself, but you can use that information where you saw it, and you're like, oh, would that work here? Yes, I'm going to use it. So stuff like that, like borrowing text from other people, that's something I've done always. It's hard to have like completely original ideas that are like good, right? You see a lot of people like, oh, I'm gonna bring this crazy set, and it's so terrible.
This Feather Dance Mega Pidgeot's gonna go fucking crazy, man.
Right, like, oh, it walls all his physical attackers, and then it doesn't. It just doesn't happen like that. So like watching more games, you get to see what works, and what are some common sets. Why are they common? I'm a big believer in not overcomplicating your build. Like, if I don't need to bring something crazy, I'm generally not going to, right? If I can bring something consistent, then that's perfect, right? If it just so happens to be Punching Glove Urshifu for the 7th time in a row, it's still Punching Glove Urshifu. It's good. It can't be bad. So, stuff like that.
I actually think that's a really cool thought. I've never thought of that. In the sense, like, that's something I definitely do. Is so I'll go watch, better players play games when I'm slumping, and I'll be like, okay, what are they doing that I'm not doing? Like, for example, when I was, really, really getting the draft back in like the end of Gen 7, early Gen 8, and obviously trying to get better and better and better. I used to watch a ton of old Gypsy's old content because I thought he always explained his thought process really, really well. But something I never did was trying to predict what the builds are going to be when I'm watching a show on replay, when I'm watching a thing. I think that's actually a really, really cool thought experiment going forward. That's something I'll definitely be doing. I've actually never, no glaze for the podcast, I've never thought of doing that in my life, so that's definitely a really, really cool idea.
That's something that I do all the time when I'm live comming games. I did it a lot in DPL Season 7, where we would look at the matchup, me and a bunch of friends in call, we'd be like, all right, I don't really do the matchup preview anymore because I find it's probably a waste of time, but we would look at the whole thing, be like, oh, this set looks good here, it could be this, it could be that, this set looks good, probably going to be benching this, and then we'll see who's right in the game. So it gives us a little bit of something to talk about, and then during the game we're like, well, this did this much damage, probably going to be choice bans, which means this is not the rocker, this other thing has to be the rocker, and then all that other stuff, and
it's also easier to analyze it. It's also easier to analyze it too, right? When you're not in that stressful situation of playing the game. I mean, it's like backseat gaming all the time. We'll be in call, like for the Wi-Fi leagues. So a lot of the ones you'll watch for us, we'll stream the games to each other in like the league server to keep the server active, stuff like that. So we'll see the games before you guys do, and when we watch it, I'll be like, oh, why do you do this? Or why isn't he this set? Or why didn't he make this double? It's a lot easier to make the correct play when you're in a calm state of mind. And you're like, oh, why aren't they doing this? So I think that can also kind of trick your brain into understanding those correct play patterns and things like that as you're playing. If you're kind of watching other people as they're playing and being like, I think this play, or you also could just be fucking wrong, and then you're like, oh, I was wrong. They won the game doing not what I said, and that would have lost them the game. I don't think it was to the same extent, but you said that last week. You and Addison were watching a game, and you're like, we couldn't figure out how this person won, and then they won. And we're like, oh shit, that's how they win. Oopsie, so.
Well, a lot of times it's like, oh, I'd sucker here. Just like throw out a random prediction
I'm him.
and see if you're right. You're like, oh, I totally would have lost this game.
A guy like me would have made a triple,
Yep. You're like, yeah, I'd go Weavile here. Yeah.
No, he's for sure shadow balling. Come on, he's not U-turning.
Come on.
Alrighty, but with that being said, speaking of watching games, let's go ahead and watch a game real quick. The way I kind of want to do this is we're going to watch through this DCL game. This is the Gen 6 and ORAS game between Darkrai, Shuckle 15, Professor Shell, a man of many names and many accolades. But we're going to watch him playing J-Scarf, who's another guy who's dabbled in the Wi-Fi scene. He played in LTM with us. He played BBR last summer Scramble. Both players who are very solid, and this is a really fun game that L5 passed to me. So we'll go ahead and watch through it from turn 1, and if at any point you have something you want to point out, I'll go play-by-play. You want to give some commentary and pause, and we could talk about it a little bit. So, with that being said, anything on lead matchup that really, really stands out to you, offensively, defensively?
So first of all, like, you look at J-Scarf's team, right? What's the win con here? There's 3 possibilities. Kind of 4, but mostly 3. You have Sandrill, you have maybe like a Calm Mind Reuniclus, and you have Feraligatr. Now, is it going to be Calm Mind Reuniclus in this game? No. Look at the team. There's Encore Whimsicott, there's Empoleon that can kind of like check anything besides Focus Blast, and Focus Blast is not going to be hitting Mew. So like, there's way too many things for it to cover. It cannot be set up Reuniclus. So then you're looking at, okay, is it SD Drill? Probably is going to be, right? If you look at this, you need SD to break the Mew. The Lando needs +2 to die. SD Drill looks amazing here. Feraligatr? Maybe. Yeah, it could be DD. There is the Whimsicott to deal with, but outside of that, it's really hard for Darkrai to kill the Feraligatr. It's naturally bulky against a lot of these guys.
DD or
like
SD.
The arrow isn't going to kill it. You can DD on that. The Infernape is not going to kill it. You can DD on that. You can Aqua Jet if you wanted to. The only thing you don't really set up on is Lando, Mew, and Whimsicott. So if you set up on half the team, that's pretty good, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Tyranitar going to be the sand setter for the drill, obviously. Probably going to be the rocker, right? Because you don't want rocks on your win con, and drill looks like a pretty likely win con. Then Tornadus, probably just going to be a sponge for a lot of these hits. There's a Lando, there's Infernape, fighting resist, ground resist. It's pretty nice here. Tentacle removal, pretty standard stuff. Like, just from the team preview, we can kind of tell what J-Scarf has brought here. Now, who knows if we'll actually be right. But that's my thought process, right, on team preview. And if you look at the other side, maybe we won't do the other side right now because that's a lot of words.
There's a lot of words. We've been
What are
here
we
for an hour.
Yeah, we're gonna press play and go.
Yeah, we are watching from JSR's guide, so we're gonna go ahead and press go. We're on normal speed too, so we don't accidentally zoom past each other right here. We're gonna see a lead Tentacruel into the lead Mew. Immediately gonna pivot out on the psychic or on the potential psychic from the Mew, as it does bulk up immediately and get a toxic or a knockoff off. Toxic comes out
As
from the
you can
Reuniclus.
see, This wasn't set up for Uniclus, and we knew this already.
Yeah, just not enough slots, right? And like you said, and again, there's also a team. Again, we were talking about kind of like new bait mons earlier. We were talking about Uniclus. There's no dark type on the other team, guys. You know, but it doesn't mean that something like that's going to do well. But the bulky toxic variant, and obviously being Magic Guard itself, not having to worry about getting synchronized, is really nice in stopping this Mew, which looks like it would have done a lot of fucking damage if this thing wasn't toxic immediately. Like it was getting a couple before it went down. So we're gonna press play again, as it does get poisoned this next turn. And due to losing the item, this Reuniclus actually just kind of stuffs this thing, at least initially with the toxic off. I mean, it can bulk up again, but at that point you're gonna be back at full, and you're still doing pretty well. And Bell comes out as Tentacruel is going to pivot on itself, and it shows the SD right here as it gets knocked off, loses a Choppleberry. And Facade pops, I guess, protecting against potential Skull Burn. It's not like there's much Tentacruel can do otherwise, as it is just going to get 2-hit KO'd by the neutral Facade. Out comes for Alligator. Oh.
And are we pausing or what?
I paused for you. Yeah.
Okay. So, why is it SD Empoleon? I want you to answer this. Why is it SD?
Me to answer this. Well, I think, Jet's obviously strong in a guys like Drill and things like that, so I'm assuming it's like an SD Jet variant, potentially. But it also lures in this Tentacruel to kind of put some damage on it, potentially, right? If Tentacruel is going to be an initial pivot? I don't know.
Yeah, it 1v1s the Tentacruel. It 1v1s Reuniclus, most sets.
Oh, there you go, yeah.
The Aqua Jet for Drill is very important, and then it's Choppleberry, because for Alligator, its best move into Empoleon is what? Superpower. So it kind of like does a lot of things here. And also Chopple covers a Focus Blast from Torn or a Hammer Arm. Also a possibility. So really smart prep, honestly. It looks very good here.
Oh yeah, especially. Alright, we're going to see EQ pop off into this Whimsicott. Obviously it has to be kind of that initial pivot to potentially be able to encore that guy or do any, stop it from getting any shenanigans going, but it also takes, ground fighting and water pretty darn well if this thing can't fit Ice Punch in the matchup, depending on what it's going for. U-turns out as the Reuniclus is going to come in right here. Empoleon, once again, kind of finding a position to do some good damage here. Waterfall only does a little bit to the for Alligator, but we have a pretty darn good pivot in our Whimsicott. Now the EQ pops. It's also not showing leftovers, so something to keep in mind. It's not getting any passive recovery back. It does U-turn on the Rocky Helmet Torn, as Arrow finally starting to switch in, and this Pokemon is really, really strong in this matchup, in my opinion, as well. T-Tar is a good kind of initial pivot in, as a Thunder Fang does pop here. It is going to go ahead and only do 44 with Earthquake, so probably a pretty darn physically defensive Tar. Stone Edge does not kill as the second Earthquake comes off, and trading for that T-Tar is honestly really nice, because the team does look pretty darn weak to this Excadrill at this point.
It's an SC opportunity for Drill, potentially.
Nope, it doesn't SD there. We SD here on the Landers, and we get blown up with a superpower, which is pretty darn tough. I guess the fear there is like some kind of like Aqua Tail from Arrow, right?
Yeah, maybe. But it already revealed Earthquake, right? And if it had Aqua Tail, it would have been stronger into T-Tar. And I know Darkrai doesn't like inaccurate moves, so we can probably come up with the rest of the set. Thunderfang, Earthquake, what else do you need versus this team?
Well, and it's also
maybe a Crunch for Reuniclus. Maybe you still want Stone Edge for Torn, but maybe Roost. I don't know. But yeah, I think the Landers being Rocky Helmet Superpower would definitely put a thorn in J-Skur's side. You definitely could have seen how maybe if this Drill got an SD off and one-shot the Landers, this could have been a completely different game.
And I think it's also, well, to be fair, it also definitely did not die at +2. But if you see this thing pivot in, into and you already have shown Air Balloon, you probably assume it's rocking with something to hit you, right? It's not going to come in to not hit you. I mean, maybe get a slow U-turn out, I guess, if that's what your thought process might be, but...
Yeah, I'm just saying versus like a normal like Life Orb Landorus, it's a great bring, right? But Darkrai one step ahead.
With a very nice, and I'm assuming, I don't know the calcs off the top of my head, that has to be pretty fucking fat to take like 37 from the the Iron Head. I assume that's not a very normal calc, yeah. So we see right here as we went back a little bit, it does get blown up by the superpower, and the extra control goes down 3-6. This game is not looking good for our GOAT J-Scurf. Tornadus is going to be the next pivot out as it does Icy Wind into the Mew as that comes in, gets a little speed drop, takes a little sand, takes a little poison. Nice and chipped down as it gets taunted, preventing it from getting off any recovery, but a good knockoff here from Darkrai.
Taunt is such a good move.
It always prevents this thing. You do lose your helmet, which is a little annoying, but not the end of the world, as you do get off a big U-turn, picking this thing off, and kind of resetting tempo, getting into your Gator. Whimsicott's going to be able to come out, but it just always gives a free Torn, right? You see a Moonblast?
Regen. This is the strength of Regen, you see?
Oh yeah, 100%. Just it allows you to play a little bit more safely and do a lot of these things and these U-turn pivots and things like that. Another EQ is gonna pop. Oh yeah, go ahead.
This is an amazing cycle for J-Scurf. He's able to basically get free Earthquake damage on this Whimsicott every single time this happens, as you can see. Because the Moonblast does less than Regen, and then you can U-turn on the force switch out, because if you lose Whimsicott, all of a sudden Feraligatr is threatening a reverse sweep, as you can pretty clearly see, right? So Whimsicott cannot be risked here. The U-turn is always free, and if it does stay in, you have a Reuniclus at 86. It's not a big deal.
Exactly. It's not like you're being forced out to lose them all.
Yeah. So the U-turn's free, and then if Empoleon comes in, which is the main Torn answer, then Feraligatr's back in for another Earthquake. You know, you can't really risk any of your other guys. Whimsicott is going to be the switch in, takes 16%, and you do it again, and you do it again. So you can see how J-Scurf is trying to find his way back into this game.
Oh yeah, 100%. And again, there's the combination of Gator plus Torn proving to be a big, big issue, especially with that arrow on 1%. Never able to pivot in to quite literally anything, especially not being able to pivot into Torn is really, really tough. And Gator really does just smoke everything at this point with EQ, plus like, you know, Waterfall / Aqua Jet if it is rocking that. So we see a Moonblast hit the Torn on the pivot in once again. Empo comes out, the cycle continues, we're going to U-turn, out comes Feraligatr. Feraligatr is going to force out the Infernape, Darkrai trying to find a position to get back into this game here, maybe get a little bit of damage on the skaters. We see a Mach Punch come off, out prioritizing the Aqua Jet as that gets picked off. Out comes Whimsicott next, and what that sack's going to allow him to do is kind of swing momentum back into his favor here. Whimsicott's going to get the momentum in the initiative on the Tornadus, having to be a little bit aggressive there, as the Aerodactyl's going to come out. Uniclus hopefully going to be able to come in, take a couple hits. We see it take nothing from Thunderfang. Recover comes out as Landorus comes out, and then rocks are going to go up, which is really, really annoying.
This is the great way that Darkrai stops this continuous cycle. Because now no longer Regen is out healing Moonblast, because rocks. And Feraligatr isn't staying healthy the whole time either. So all of a sudden, you know, this is how he did it. He had to give up his Infernape to get this position, but it was probably worth it, right?
Oh yeah, you suck in endless vortex until inevitably he gets to the point where the Torn answer is gone, or he inevitably gets to the point where the Gator answer is gone, and your Infernape didn't beat anything at that point really anyways. So and the Mach Punch damage was really clutch too. I mean, like obviously you're wearing this thing down with rocks going up, but it being at 56 means it's worn down pretty darn, or a lot faster at that point. SD comes out from this Empoleon as Shadow Ball hits it, procs a Spadef drop, and it is not Defiant, by the way. So I thought that was pretty interesting when I was watching back in this game. I'm sure there were some like Torrent calcs, or there were some like ways to get put into Torrent, or it might have just been forgetting that Empo got Torrent, but I really do doubt that. I think it's probably just there was some Torrent. Yeah, especially if it is Jet, which we are expecting. It didn't like EQ into that tentacle, so I really doubt it's like some random EQ coverage. It's probably just Facade Waterfall Jet SD.
Yeah, 100%.
Because I only mention it because I saw a lot of Waffle in the chat right next to it above, like, oh my god, where's the +4? And obviously if he did get up to that point, he's probably doing a lot of damage to this team at this point. I mean, he probably damn near win soon, but
I will
Yeah.
say this is an ORAS game, if we haven't mentioned before, so it is defiant.
I did
It's
mention
not
it. I did
competitive.
mention at the beginning, but I probably should have mentioned that this Pokemon was different in ORAS. Yeah. So this is not competitive. This is defiant. It didn't get that changed until this time, which was a really cool buff, by the way. I thought that was cool, but I guess not a situation
either way,
here. Mm-hmm.
Either way, the Renucleus goes down because it's torrent boosted now.
Yeah. It would have been +6, who's to say? But it's okay. We see the Gator come out. We save that for the Jet priority as we see a Jet come out here, do some Rocky Helmet. So I don't know if we had revealed that we were Rocky Helmet up to this point.
So that was a brand new reveal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I just clicked Earthquake at every point up to that point. Is there a reason? I guess if we're at +2 in Torrent, was there a world where that thing died to an opposing Aqua Jet? I'm assuming there probably was if you click Jet there, right?
The Feraligator's faster and it jets it first.
Well, yeah, no, I'm saying is that's why he jetted it opposed to EQing that turn.
Yeah,
Not,
obviously.
Yeah,
Yeah, obviously.
And then we're going to see Moonblast, little special attack drop, still doing a lot of damage considering there are also rocks up. We do get an Icy Wind off as gets a KO regardless of what we're going into. Aerial Ace does not kill as we get off another Icy Wind.
This was a miscalc by Darkrai. He thought the Aerial Ace would kill, but this Torn is actually way bulkier than he expected. So it lived the Aerial Ace. He had Thunder Fang, but 95% is not good enough for this kid, I swear to God.
Not at all. I mean, to be fair, he misses the 95 and loses the game because of it. He's probably a little hot. He's probably a little pissed. So, that is valid. But we do see an Icy Wind from the Torn here, either showing that that's not Cane Lassa, or obviously we don't want to miss Hurricane, but we're going to see it doesn't actually end up killing here. Going to speed drop this Whimsicott here as a Moonblast pops. Out comes Feraligator. This is -1 speed, keep in mind, but we throw off an Aqua Jet and we die to Rocky Helmet and lose the game. Now, there's a lot going on in these last few turns, so I figured we could get through it completely before we kind of go back and talk about it, and I can rewind on screen if need be.
So remember that video you just made about all the generational changes?
Yeah.
You forgot to mention something.
A few things.
This is not how Rocky Helmet works in any other gen from Gen 7 forward. If you end the game in a double down from Rocky Helmet, the Rocky Helmet user will lose in every gen except for ORAS and I guess Black White.
I was gonna say, does that also did they switch it between? Okay, yeah. So after Gen 7, that mechanic changes.
For draft gens, Gen 6 is the first draft gen, so that's all I really care about.
True.
But Gen 7 Plus, it doesn't work like this. And J-Scurf, he knew it didn't work like that in newer gens. He assumed it would happen the same way in ORAS. So he thought this was 100% win path. And can you blame him?
No. I mean, I do wonder, is there a we also don't know his Gator spread, right? If he's like a super fat Gator, there's probably a universe where he doesn't outspeed -1 Whimsicott too. So
we know he's faster than the Whimsicott because the Whimsicott is calced as max defense. So max defense, 0 speed, -1. It's not going to be faster than the Feraligator.
I guess it's fair. Yeah. So he could have obviously EQ'd there. Now, is there also a safer win path to potentially? Obviously we Aerial Ace here. I'm back on 38. Sorry, I guess you can't see my screen or it'll mess up the podcast layout. We're back on 38 here. Is it maybe potentially a safer win path to U-turn that first turn on the Whimsicott, come back in, and then
helmet?
Well, no, yeah, that's true. You're right. Yeah, you can't. And because in my head I'm like, can you U-turn? Like, is there any other safe path other than knowing the mechanic and just queuing?
You would have lost.
Yeah, no, he would have lost. Well, I know that. I'm asking about different plays. I wasn't playing, buddy.
Yeah. No, you would never U-turn on a Rocky.
Yeah, obviously you're at 6%. You can't U-turn on it. Icy Wind, obviously, if it doesn't kill. And even if it is cane, you always Icy Wind here opposed to caning and missing and then fucking losing. So, it literally came down to very niche mechanic knowledge in this tournament game. Again, a game where J-Scarf was, for lack of a better term, he was getting smoked for a little bit there. It was not looking good in that early game. He was put in a bad position pretty darn early. Was able to get Darkrai in an absolute blender and a Vortex. Darkrai was able to make the appropriate sack and repositioning and came down to the wire. You sent me a bunch of games. This is by far the most fun one to watch. This one was really dope. So Yeah, that's tough. I didn't know this at all. And did you know this before this game? Like, was this something you had given to? That's crazy. I would not have known that. There's mechanic differences I know between gens, but the differences between Rocky helmet calculations is not in my bag. I'll tell you that.
I'm a total nerd for game mechanics. Like, anytime there's like something where like I'm not sure what that is, let's test it. That's always my thing. Let's find out.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. I think you should always test it. However, that is not one I've ever thought about testing. So that was
This is something that I knew from a Gen 7 game where Money Guy was playing some like regen balance against a Mega Mawile team, and his play was to switch back and forth between Pex and Tangrowth and try to kill the Mawile with Rocky Helmet, and that was the end game. And he managed to KO the Mawile the same turn everything died to the Mawile, but the helmet finished it off. But then, the Mawile won. And I was like, isn't that not how that works? Is that a bug on Showdown? It wasn't how it worked
a couple months ago. Yeah.
Right. But that's how it works in Gen 7 Plus. So that's how I knew.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of one of those things you kind of have to practically see to really, or like either watching someone else play or it happened to you. Like it happened to J-Scrub. I'm sure he will not forget that mechanic ever again.
You learn so much by just watching a bunch of games.
Yeah.
Like what I was saying earlier. Just watch a bunch of games.
Oh yeah, 1000%.
Yeah.
So that was a really fun one. Good game to both players too. I mean, it was pretty clean. There wasn't any like crazy cheese or anything like that too. It was just well played, well prepped, and yeah, it was a good one. And then finally, we have to end it off with our favorite segment of the week, Waffler of the Week, which is going to be a very funny screenshot. I'd like to preface this. Kaz with a C, if your dog got struck by lightning, I'm very sorry. But this message made me laugh really hard for like 5 minutes the first time I saw it. It's Kaz. He's at Kaz. What time works for you this week? I'm PST. My dog got struck by lightning. You win, which is crazy. Me personally, I'm sure you guys have seen Snowy Aegon in videos and the streams and stuff. We got a Snowy emo on the channel. I'm a big dog guy. I don't know if I'd be typing in a Discord chat if my dog just got struck by lightning when I was supposed to be playing a Generation 9 Draft League game. I thought this one was very funny because either it's something fucking crazy or it is the craziest Johnny excuse and I mean, we can't say without a shadow of a doubt that it didn't happen.
I can. I will do that.
we just decided.
I'll do it if you won't.
L5 doesn't think your dog got struck by lightning. Please don't send proof in the Discord chat. I don't want to see the front dog. But that's a good example. This is a good example, by the way, of Waffle of the Week. We had some weenies. I don't want to hear people giving shitty draft league takes. It's boring. I really don't. I hear enough of them. I really don't want to hear why, Sableye is worth 12 points. Like I've heard enough. I want to see silly shit like this. So if you guys have any fun ideas for Waffle of the Week, fun ideas for Game of the Week, by the way, we're looking through tournament games mostly and stuff like that. Maybe some fun Wi-Fi games like last week. But if you guys have any bangers, again, I'm totally down to watch and sift through and see if there's any really cool ones. Drop your Wafflers of the Week. Drop your podcast questions. Join the Discord server below where you'll find channels for that. Do you have any more parting words, Mr. L5?
I think that's good.
I hope so. We've been here for a while, man. I can't. I'm fucking tired. Alrighty, gang. There you go. There's your 2-hour podcast. If you guys skip anything and don't give me my ad revenue, we're gonna have a talk. All right. I'll catch you guys later. Drop a like if you enjoyed. Sign up for new. Later.